Hello, everyone. Welcome to Zen and Fanfics. Today we are featuring What If Deku's Soul Created? Magic Goddess? The story is written by Prysmordia on Wattpad. Before we start, please like and subscribe for more content. Now let's dive into the story. At the tender age of 4, when most children his age were busy discovering the wonders of their quirks, glowing fingers, floating toys, super speed Izuku Midoriya was told he was quirkless. Quirkless? Being quirkless isn't a good thing in this society where heroes with powerful quirks are considered and respected on high pedestal. The sterile room smelled of antiseptic, its walls as white and cold as the doctor's words. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Midoriya. There's nothing more we can do. Your son is quirkless." His mother, Inko Midoriya, had sobbed, her tears soaking into the young Izuku's green curls. He had not cried. He had only stared blankly ahead, trying to process what it meant to be quirkless in a world that idolized power. That night, Izuku lay in his bed, silent, clutching the edge of his all-might blanket with wide, dry eyes. His dreams had shattered before they could even be born. But just as the silence in his room began to settle, like dust on forgotten shelves, he heard it. A whisper, soft, gentle, feminine. Izuku, his eyes widened. He sat up, his heart thudding against his ribs. The room was dark, the only light coming from the glow-in-the-dark stickers on his ceiling. "Who's there?" he asked, voice trembling. The whisper came again, clearer this time. "Izuku, do not be afraid. I am here. I've always been here. Where are you?" "Inside you." He blinked. The voice wasn't scary. It felt warm, familiar, like a lullaby sung to him as a baby. It filled the empty space left by the doctor's words. It filled the void. "Are you my quirk?" he asked. There was silence for a moment. Then a sigh. "I do not know. I am something else. I am a Manus, a core, a divine wisdom given form. But I am not complete. Not without you," the voice explained. Izuku didn't fully understand what those words meant. Not yet. But he nodded, and just like that, he wasn't alone anymore. Over the years, Izuku grew, and so did the voice. He named her Izumi. It just felt right. Izumi was not like other voices. She could think. She could question. She could feel. At first, she seemed purely logical, a guide that whispered, understanding into his thoughts. But with time, she evolved. Her tone softened. She laughed. With him. She scolded him when he doubted himself. He would walk home from school bruised and broken by Bakugu's bullying, and Izumi would be there. "You are more than their words. Izuku, they cannot see what you are becoming. But I can." Izuku comforted him, not physically, but through her voice. "Thanks, Izumi," he would murmur, wiping his eyes. In the shadows of his room, she would show him knowledge symbols, ancient runes, lost language etched into his dreams like memories he had never lived but always known. When he was 8, she gave him his first spell, a healing incantation that stitched his scraped knee when his mother wasn't looking. When he was 10, she taught him how to bend mana, raw life energy into shape, forming a small floating orb that danced around his palms like a firefly. But no one could know. Not yet. Izumi was his secret, his best friend, his guardian. And to Izumi, he was more than her vessel. He was her missing half. On his 12th birthday, Izuku stood by the riverbank alone. The others were celebrating quirks and fighting with flashy powers. Izumi, now stronger and more defined, spoke with clarity. "You are not powerless, Izuku. You are a mage, a bearer of Manus. Your power is ancient, and it does not bow to physical laws." Izuku clenched his fists. "Then why? Can't I show anyone? Why do I have to hide it?" There was a pause. Then Izumi spoke with what sounded like hesitation. "Because they would not understand. They would see you as a threat, as something other. They fear what they cannot control. Technically speaking, she's right. Izuku is unique not because he's quirkless, but because of her, because of his fate." Izuku exhaled. "Then I'll train. In secret. Until I'm strong enough that they can't ignore me." He's determined. will fight for himself and his dream. Izumi's voice trembled with something akin to pride. Then I will be with you every step of the way. PBRTY hit Izuku like a truck, and Izumi changed too. Post PBRTY Izuku 6 flat, lean muscles, nigh inexhaustible mana pool. Yeah, I'm not calling it Magicules, since Magicules doesn't work like how the power system Izuku would have access to. She laughed more, teased more. Sometimes her voice would soften when he was talking about things he liked. Heroes, strategy, even girls, although he never admitted it. One night she whispered, "You've grown, Izuku. You're not the scare boy I first spoke to." Those words melted his heart. He smiled in the darkness. "And you've changed too. You sound more alive." Izumi hesitated. "It's because of you. I exist because of you. I feel because of you. You're not just my host. You are my other half." Izuku blinked. He didn't know how to respond to that. But something warm filled his chest. Maybe he wasn't alone in the universe. Maybe he never had. Then, when he turned 14, something shifted. His spells became stronger. His control, more refined. Izumi taught him how to form magic arrays, how to manipulate elemental forces, how to detect lies, even how to briefly phase through solid objects. He was no longer quirkless. He was something more. And she began showing more emotion. There were moments he felt her sadness when he doubted himself, or her joy when he succeeded. "I want you to be happy, Izuku," she whispered once. "Because when you're in pain, I feel it too. You're always with me. Of course I'd want you happy too." They sat in silence together, one voice in a body, the other in his soul. But that silence was full, whole. By 15, Izuku had made his decision. He would aim for UA. Every morning, he trained his body. Every night, he honed his spells with Izumi. He blended science and sorcery, strength and skill. And then, one fateful evening, as he stood beneath a full moon at the edge of the city, drawing a complex summoning sigil with glowing lines of mana, she appeared. The air shimmered. Light spiraled around him. And then, she stepped forth. Not just a voice, not just a dream. Manas, Izumi, she looked like him. Almost. Exactly. The same wild green curls. Her eyes were unlike his. Hers are red bright eyes, yet hers held a softer gleam. Her body was unmistakably female, clothed in a flowing white cloth. She blinked, looking at her hands, then to him. "Izuku, it worked." He stumbled back in awe. "Why? You're real." Izumi smiled, tears brimming in her eyes. "I always was. But now I can stand beside you." She reached out and touched his cheek. Warm, alive. "You're appealing," he whispered, breathless. She chuckled. "I'm just your reflection, Izuku. The half you gave voice to." But in that moment, he knew the truth. She wasn't just a part of him. She was her own. And, together, there was something more. Not yet a student of UA, but on the path. And now he wouldn't walk it alone. For Izumi, his Manas, was beside him in body, mind, and soul. Their story had only just begun. The first few days after Izumi's manifestation were nothing short of surreal. Izuku woke up the morning after the summoning ritual with the soft rustle of fabric and the scent of morning dew, not from outside, but from the presence beside him. Izumi, still in her emerald and gold robes, sat cross-legged on the floor, watching the sunrise through his bedroom window, with an expression that could only be described as wonder. She turned to him with a smile. It's even more appealing with real eyes. Izuku rubbed his own eyes, blinking sleep away. You didn't disappear," he said while poking Izumi's cheeks, checking if she's real. "Why would I?" She tilted her head. "You gave me form. You made me real," she said resolutely. Their mornings were different now. Awkward in a way. Sharing space with someone who had lived inside your soul was a unique experience, to say the least. But it wasn't uncomfortable. Just new. Izumi was curious about everything. She wanted to touch, to feel, to understand. She marveled at simple things, the texture of a blanket, the warmth of tea, the cool breeze on her cheeks. Izuku found himself watching her more often than he cared to admit, fascinated by the way she experienced the world for the first time. It was only a matter of time before Inko found out. One afternoon, Izuku returned home with Izumi in tow, her hood drawn up but her aura unmistakable. Inko had just finished making dinner and looked up from the kitchen, expecting to greet her son, and froze. Izuku, who is this? Inko's mouth hung wide open. Izuku, panicked. Mom, this is, she's Izumi. He immediately shouted, panicking. Izumi lowered her hood slowly, revealing features nearly identical to her son's, save for the delicate curves of her face and the unmistakable feminine energy that surrounded her. Inko blinked, her eyes darting between the two. Her hand went to her mouth. Oh my goodness, you. She looks just like you. Inko pointed out, inspecting Izumi carefully. I know, Izuku said sheepishly, because she came from me. Well, sort of. She's been with me since I was 4. She's my Manas, a divine core of magic and knowledge. She's real now. I made her real. There was silence. Tense. Awkward. Izumi stepped forward and bowed deeply. It is an honor to meet you, Inko Midoriya. I owe my existence to your son. He gave me form, voice, and purpose. Inko's lips trembled, and then, suddenly, she rushed forward and wrapped Izumi in a hug. You've been with my baby all this time? Helping him? Protecting him? Izumi's eyes widened in surprise, and then softened. She gently returned the hug. Always. I've never left his side, and I never will, but how do you know I was protecting Izuku? Izumi asked Inko, while Izuku on the other hand froze. Inko pulled back, wiping her eyes. Well, Izuku isn't exactly the most stealthy, not the greatest liar, either. I knew something was wrong when my BB cream didn't last long as it should, like someone was using them without me knowing, and then it hit me. A stream of tears fell from Inko's eyes. She knew her son was hiding something and certainly not being bullied. She doesn't know why would he hide it from her, so only thing she could do buy first aid kits and not talk to him about it. Believe me as the author when I say Inko tried. The school threatened to expel Izuku if she didn't let it go. To their eyes, he's worthless. They'd rather cling to Katsuki Bakugo, who's worth 100-folds compared to Izuku. Inko couldn't afford to transfer Izuku to another school. They're only scraping by at this point by chump change that Hisashi sends from time to time. That night, the three of them sat at the table, sharing a meal. Izuku talked about training. Izumi asked 1,000 questions about food, culture, and human emotions. Inko answered all of them with a smile, tears occasionally sneaking in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. They trained together, of course. Now, their practice had reached a new level. Your control is improving, Izumi noted, standing across from him as he summoned a glowing barrier in the clearing behind the apartment. But your form needs work. Shoulders lower. Breathe with the mana, she guided him. Izuku grinned. Yes, sensei. She rolled her eyes but smiled. Mock me. Again, and I'll dual cast gravity runes on your legs. Despite her threat, there was a lightness between them. They teased. They challenged. They laughed. One afternoon, after a particularly exhausting set of spells, they collapsed side by side on the grass, staring up at the clouds. Do you miss it? Izuku asked quietly. Being part of me, just existing inside my thoughts. Izumi closed her eyes, thinking, no, I love being close to you, but this. She opened her eyes and stretched her arms to the sky. This is life. Feeling the wind, tasting sweetness, hearing birds chirp with real ears. It's worth everything. Izuku smiled. You sound like a poet. You rubbed OA on me, she replied with a smirk. Their bond deepened with each passing day. They began to sink in battle, moving together with flawless coordination. Izumi learned how to fight physically, while Izuku adapted spells to complement her movements. They were two pieces of the same soul, now finally in motion. But it wasn't just battle where their connection grew. Late at night, Izumi would sit at the foot of his bed, listening as he talked about his dreams. About Yue. About becoming a hero. About being seen not as a mistake or a pity case, but as someone who mattered. And she always listened. She too would share bits of emotion she hadn't fully understood before. Fear, hope, the ache of separation, the strange fluttering sensation she got when he smiled at her for too long. Izuku, what is this? She asked one evening, pressing her palm to her chest. This warmth, this strange flutter. Is it mana disturbance? He choked, slightly on his water. Oh no, that's just feelings. He answered. She tilted her head. Do you feel it too? She inquired. He looked away. Yeah, sometimes. They didn't press it further that night, but it lingered. The bond they shared wasn't just arcane. It was emotional. In TMT, they weren't just mage and spirit anymore. They were kindred souls growing closer with every breath, every heartbeat, every shared moment. And the world, wide and unpredictable as it was now, held no fear for Izuku. Not with Izumi beside him. Not when he finally understood what it meant to be whole. Television had become one of Izumi's newest fascinations. After gaining physical form, she spent days exploring the modern world, and to Inko's amusement and sometimes concern, she quickly became obsessed with human entertainment, especially dramas. Izuku had walked into the living room more than once to find her curled up on the couch, wide-eyed, clutching a pillow as two characters on screen confessed their love amid a storm of tears and background music. Is that what people do when they like each other? She had asked him once, completely serious. They pressed their mouths together, and everything sparkles around them. Izuku, his face red, had mumbled something about it being exaggerated for storytelling, but the question clearly didn't leave her mind. One night, after their usual training session in the clearing, they returned to the apartment sweaty and exhausted. Inko was out for the evening, leaving the two of them alone. Izuku flopped onto the couch, towel around his neck, as Izumi returned from the shower, her damp hair falling softly around her shoulders. She stood in the hallway for a moment, watching him. He looked up, blinking. What's wrong? Izumi hesitated, then crossed the room with deliberate steps. She sat beside him on the couch, a strange, unreadable expression on her face. Izuku, she said quietly, I've been wondering about something. He tilted his head. About what? She leaned slightly closer. When people in these shows kiss, it's not just for drama, is it? It means something. It's a way of feeling, of confirming something emotional. His throat tightened. Why, yeah, pretty much. Her gaze was steady, thoughtful, but I've never felt it. I've never done it. And I want to understand. I want to know what it means, she said, her body moving closer. Izuku's eyes widened. Wait, are you saying yes? She said simply. I want to try it. With you, she informed him. The room felt like it had dropped 10 degrees. Or maybe it was burning hot. Izuku couldn't tell. Izumi, I don't know if we should. Izuku flushed red. You're my other half, Izuku. I trust you. Before he could stammer out another excuse, Izumi leaned in. The kiss was brief, soft. Her lips, warm and unfamiliar, pressed gently against his. There were no dramatic music swells, no fireworks. Just silence and the faint pounding of two hearts. When she pulled back, her eyes were wide, her fingers lightly brushing her lips. Oh, she whispered. It's different than I imagined. Izuku was frozen, red-faced, barely breathing. Izumi glanced at him, concerned. Was that wrong? Did I hurt you? He blinked rapidly. And no, it's just surprising. Really surprising. She nodded slowly. I see. Then I'm glad I tried it with you. She stood, smiling softly, and returned to her room, leaving Izuku alone on the couch with his thoughts and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. He stared at the ceiling, dazed. That happened. It actually happened. And somewhere inside him, Izuku knew things between them had just changed. Not in a bad way. Just a the errant way. One that he didn't fully understand yet, but he was willing to learn. Together training with Izumi had always been intense. She was patient but relentless, pushing Izuku to reach further, feel deeper, and connect more intricately with his Manas. But now, with her in physical form, their sessions had gained a new dimension. It was early morning, the world still hazy with fog. In the forest, clearing behind the apartment, the silence was broken only by the rhythm of breath and the pulsing hum of mana. "Focus, Izuku," Izumi said softly, stepping behind him. Her voice was calm, yet it carried a weight that made him straighten instantly. "Feel the flow, not just through your core, but into your limbs. Mana isn't separate from you. It is you." Izuku closed his eyes and inhaled deeply, the energy within him swirling in response. Izumi approached slowly, her steps nearly soundless over the mossy ground. She stood directly behind him, her presence warm and encompassing. Gently, she reached forward and took his hand in hers, guiding it upward. "Now, breathe out," she whispered. "Let the mana expand." He exhaled slowly, and his palm shimmered faintly with light. Izumi's other hand brushed over his shoulder, correcting his posture. Then her fingers traced a slow, deliberate path down his back to the small of his spine. Izuku shivered slightly, not in fear, but from the unexpected intimacy. "You're too tense," she said, her tone unchanging, though a subtle curve teased her lips. "Relax your core." He tried, but was difficult with her so close. She moved to his side, her fingers trailing from his wrist to his abdomen. "Your mana pool is strongest here," she murmured. Her touch lingered lightly, resting just over his stomach. "You keep overthinking your movements. Let instinct guide you." Izuku's breath caught, his cheeks flushed. "Izumi, are you doing this on purpose?" She looked up at him, eyes soft but unreadable. "Would it bother you if I was—" He hesitated, lips parting, but no words coming. There was a tension between them, not the kind born of conflict, but of something unspoken, something growing. Izumi let her fingers fall away slowly, stepping back. "You're improving, but if you keep letting your emotions scatter like this, you'll burn through your reserves. That's kind of hard when you're so close," he muttered, trying to calm the storm in his chest. She smiled again, gentle, almost apologetic. "Then we'll work on your composure, too." They resumed training, but the space between them now buzzed with something more than mana. And though Izuku focused, cast, and fought through the rest of the session, part of him knew Izumi was no longer just his guide. She was temptation and trust, power and action. And every moment they touched, the line between magic and emotion blurred just a little more. It had been months since Izuku last saw Katsuki Bakugo face to face. The two had avoided each other ever since Izuku stopped attending regular classes and began his private training in earnest. But fate, or maybe coincidence, was never content to let sleeping grudges lie. The encounter happened near Aldrich Junior High's backfield. Izuku had dropped by to pick up some old school records for the UA entrance process. Bakugo was leaving. Detention. They locked eyes. For a moment, nothing was said. Just quiet. Tension. Then Bakugo, SCO'd, loudly. "So, the quirkless nerd comes crawling back from whatever fantasy trip he's been on? You training with ghosts now?" Izuku's eyes narrowed and focused his gaze on Katsuki. Bakugo. He didn't rise to the bait at first, but something in Bakugo's sneer hit Deerrant now. Not because it was louder, but because Izuku had changed. He wasn't that trembling boy anymore. Still pretending you're tough, Kakin, hiding behind that explosive bravado to cover up your own weakness. Bakugo's smirk faltered because of Izuku's words. "What did you say?" Katsuki's voice for a moment faltered. Izuku stepped forward, calm but sharp. "You heard me. You act like you're strong, but it's all noise. You're scared. Scared that one day, someone you called useless would surpass you. And guess what? That day's already here." Bakugo's hands crackled with sparks, his teeth clenched. You think you're stronger than me, Deku? You think that magic trick makes you better? Izuku raised a hand, mana flaring in a glowing pulse across his arm. No tricks, just power. Real, earned power. Let's find out. Bakugo roared and lunged. The explosion was deafening, but Izuku was ready. He sidestepped with a swift mana boost, conjuring a shimmering barrier that absorbed the blast. Without hesitating, he countered his hand pulsing with condensed kinetic energy, striking Bakugo in the ribs with a thundering blow that sent him flying back. Bakugo landed hard, but rolled to his feet with a snarl. Come on! Izuku surged forward. The forest clearing lit up with the clash of fire and light, explosions, and sigils. Izuku didn't hold back. He weaved mana constructs between attacks, chaining gravity, snares, and paralyzing runes with brutal precision. Bakugo tried to overwhelm him with raw force, but Izuku's magic was fluid, tactical, and unrelenting. The final exchange ended with Izuku spinning behind Bakugo mid-charge. He twisted his body and slammed his palm against Bakugo's left shoulder, releasing a concentrated burst of force and gravity magic. There was a sickening crack. Bakugo screamed as he crumpled to the ground, clutching his shattered left arm. Izuku stood over him, breathing hard, eyes cold. You wanted to see who was stronger. Now you know. Bakugo glared up, pain and fury in his eyes, but he didn't speak. Stay in the ground you always put me on, and tell me next time, does the dirt taste nice? Izuku walked away, leaving the rabid dog still on ground. From the shadows across the street, Izumi appeared, arms folded, her expression unreadable. He had it coming, she said flatly. Izuku turned away. I didn't want to hurt him, but I'm done pretending. She walked beside him, awaiting silent support, and together they left Bakugo in the dirt. The line had been drawn, and Izuku Midoriya would never be walked over again. He's done being the underdog, the useless, quirkless Deku. The gates of UA High stood tall, gleaming in the morning sun. Izuku took a deep breath as he stepped forward, backpack slung over his shoulder, the weight of years of work and transformation pressing against his chest. But he wasn't nervous. Not anymore. Gone was the trembling boy who muttered strategies under his breath. This Izuku Midoriya carried the calm confidence of someone who had already battled his demons and won. As he walked through the courtyard, students buzzed around him with excitement, anxiety, and anticipation. He kept to himself, focused, gaze steady. But as fate would have it, a familiar voice pierced through the crowd. Hey, watch where you're walking, dumbass. Izuku turned to see Katsuki Bakugo, arm wrapped in a cast, glaring at him from across the crowd. The tension sparked immediately, but Izuku only awaited a glance. Still sore, he said calmly. Maybe don't start fights you can't win. Bakugo growled, but said nothing. He knew better now. Izuku turned away without hesitation, continuing through the halls toward the written exam. He found a seat, sat down, and breathed through every question with calculated precision. Logic, tactics, historical hero laws. Hero, theory, he answered them all effortlessly. Then came the practical exam. The moment he stepped into the mock city zone, the proctor's announcement rang out. Defeat as many robots as possible. Chaos erupted as students scattered in every direction. Izuku didn't run. He walked forward, drawing in mana with each step. All right, Izumi, he whispered, his hand glowing. Let's show them what we've built. Her voice echoed gently in his mind. Let them see who you are. Now, he raised a hand, and with a single gesture, summoned a barrage of spell circles that hovered in the air like radiant sigils. Energy blasts rained down, disabling robots with pinpoint accuracy. With enhanced mobility spells wrapped around his legs, he darted between enemies, blasting, dodging, redirecting wreckage as shields and weapons alike. The crowd watching from the monitors murmured in awe. His control, his power, his efficiency. Even the judges raised their eyebrows. Then came the zero-pointer. A massive rumble shook the battlefield as the hulking machine burst through a wall, towering over the cityscape. The other students ran, screamed, but Izuku stood still until he heard it. Help! Someone help me! A girl trapped beneath rubble. Her ankle was crushed. She couldn't move. Without hesitation, Izuku surged forward. His sigils wrapped around him like wings, boosting his speed. He dove in, shattered the rubble with a focus shockwave, and scooped her up. The zero-pointer loomed closer. Hang on, he told the girl. He set her aside gently, raised both hands, and unleashed a fully charged gravity rune into the air. It expanded like a dome above them, distorting space. The zero-pointer slowed further. Then it stopped, and with a shout, Izuku leapt, striking its head with a reinforced mana spear. The machine collapsed in on itself with a grinding roar. The field went silent. When he landed, the crowd watching burst into cheers. Later, in Recovery Girls, Oitsa, the girl he'd saved, Achiko Uraraka, thanked him repeatedly, flustered and grateful. You didn't have to come back for me, but you did. That was amazing, she exclaimed. Izuku simply smiled. That's what a hero does, right? When the results came in days later, there was no surprise. Izuku had aced both exams, #1 in both written and practical. And as he held the acceptance letter in his hand, Izumi materialized beside him, pride glowing in her eyes. You did it. Izuku smiled. No, we did. Yue had accepted a new kind of hero, and he was just getting started. In the observation room above the testing grounds, Yue's SDA reviewed the footage of the exam. Midoriya, Izuku. Present Mike muttered, adjusting his sunglasses. Never seen a quirk like that. That's something else. It's not a quirk, Nizu replied, scrolling through a tablet. At least not one recorded in any medical file. In fact, according to Alder's records, Midoriya is oatially quirkless. A quirkless person suddenly gained a quirk? This doesn't add up. Is he still alive? A frail man in the back thought to himself as his body shuddered at the thought. Aizawa's eyes narrowed. Quirkless? That can't be right. You saw what he did. Those sigils, the control, the constructs, yes, Nizu said with quiet certainty. But it's not a quirk. It's something older. Through my research in history, some caves and ruins showed text. They're hidden from the public's eyes. In our world, there are several power systems that use dormant energy within a person's body. Nizu for a moment paused and took a deep breath. In China, practitioners call it qi, the living essence of a person used to strengthen their bodies. But this is the first time I've seen someone project something. Nizu's curiosity piqued at Izuku's display of power. Everyone in the room froze at the information Nizu has. Snipe leaned back in his chair. Aldera filed a report. Claimed he attacked another student, Bakugo Katsuki. Broke his arm in a fight. Midnight frowned. That's serious. Why wasn't he arrested? Nizu tapped his claws against the armrest. Because the more I dug, the more the truth unraveled. Aldera's SDA enabled years of bullying. Bakugo has multiple filed incidents against him hidden under vague disciplinary notes. And Midoriya? He never once retaliated. Until a few weeks ago, when the incident happened, Aizawa's gaze sharpened. You're saying he snapped? Finally, pushed too far. No, Nizu said. I'm saying he didn't snap. He defended himself with precision, with restraint. He didn't lash out. He responded. And after that fight, Bakugo didn't file anything. Himself. The room was quiet. Nizu smiled slightly. This boy is dangerous. But not because of his power. Because he's disciplined. Because he thinks. Because he's been tempered by fire. And emerged stronger. He set the tablet down. Izuku Midoriya will be one of the most important students this school has ever seen. No one disagreed. The sun shone brightly over Yue High as Izuku Midoriya stepped through the threshold of Class 1A for the first time. The Room was buzzing with introductions, casual chatter, and a few post-exam nerves. He scanned the room briefly, noting several faces he'd seen during the entrance exam, including Achiko. Uraraka, who waved enthusiastically when she spotted him. He returned the gesture with a nod, walking calmly toward his seat. Behind him, shimmering softly into view, was Izumi. Her emerald and gold trimmed robes had shifted slightly into a sleeker design, still mystical, but more modern, appropriate for a high school environment. Her eyes were unlike Izuku's, flicked across the room curiously, taking in every face. Whispers started almost immediately. Is that his twin? Someone murmured. Wait, isn't she a student? Another whispered. No way, she just appeared. Like magic, a third said. Izuku sighed, rising from his seat after setting his bag down. He turned toward the curious gazes of the class. Izuku said, I guess I should explain. This is Izumi. She's not my sister or clone. She's my Monis, my magical partner. That got everyone's attention. Tenya Ida adjusted his glasses and stepped forward. A magical familiar? But she seems sentient, independent. Izumi smiled at that. Because I was born from Izuku's soul when he was 4 years old. For years, I existed within him, learning, guiding, protecting. But thanks to our bond and his progress, I was able to manifest physically. Mina, Ashido blinked. So, you're like an ancient spirit girlfriend, oh, maybe a summon waifu like? That. What's that anime? Was it again the one with the big booby demon girl with purple hair? She said, still thinking about the title of it. Almost everyone almost laughed at that, but some keep their composure. Izumi tilted her head thoughtfully. Then she smiled wider. Yes, that's a good term. She turned to face the class proudly. By human standards from the drama's I've seen, I am Izuku's girlfriend. Izuku blinked, then froze. W what? He stammered, turning to her, mouth open, face turning red, but no words came out. The class erupted. What? Kaminari shouted. Wait, they're dating? Jairu added, raising an eyebrow. I knew there was something weirdly romantic about them, Mina said with a grin. Hold up dramas? What kind of? Shows as she'd been watching. She looks just like him. Is this some Yusuga no Sora IRL? Ciro asked while Mineta glanced at him. Eyes squinted. My brother. Mineta whispered. Izumi clasped her hands together and continued cheerfully. In every drama I watched with Inko, the female lead always declares it proudly. He is mine, and I am his. So I thought, so why not? Achiko blinked, stunned, her face heating up. Izuku tried to form a response. Izumi can't just say things like that, waving his hand around. Why not? Izumi said innocently. It's the truth, isn't it? We live together. We train together. We share a bed. Everyone locked there. Eyes on Izuku, squinted. Not like that. Izuku blurted, covering her mouth quickly. You sleep. On the futon. The class laughed, some students exchanging widened eyes and playful grins. From the back, Bakugo growled. Then nerd's got a spirit girlfriend who calls him hers. What the hell is happening? He's supposed to be quirkless. Why does his quirk give him an NCST girlfriend? Bro, I don't know what kind of tags you've been searching, Katsuki Bakugo. I got my eyes on you. Izumi gently pulled Izuku's hand away and looked at the class with a sweet smile. Make no mistake, I'm not a side character or accessory. I am his, and he is mine, she declared. Izuku, still stunned, chose not to argue further. He sat down, burying his face into his hands. While groaning softly, Tenya Ida raised his hand. But how will this be addressed in the classroom? Will she be learning the lessons? Observing. Before Izuku could answer, the classroom door slid open. A tired-looking man in a capture weapon scarf walked in, eyes half lidded. Aizawa spoke. None of that matters. If she disrupts class, she's gone. If she helps him become a better hero, she stays. Simple. Izumi smirked. Fair enough. Izuku bowed slightly. We'll follow every rule, sensei. Aizawa yawned. I doubt that. but I'll be watching. He paused. At the front of the room. Now that introductions are out of the way, we'll be heading to the field for a quirk apprehension test. Get changed and meet outside. No one dared to question, not even Ochako, who wanted to speak at first, but gave up halfway. In the boys' changing room, students began pulling on their gym uniforms. Kaminari whistled. Man, this uniform's tight. Hope it's not a combat thing. When Izuku changed, there was a brief moment of stunned silence. His physique was cut lean muscle, broad shoulders, strong core. Every movement showed precision and control. Whoa. Midoriya, Kirishima said, wide-eyed. You're seriously ripped? What do you live in the gym? Nope. Izuku said calmly as he tied his shoes. Izumi built this. There was a beat of silence. Built? Kaminari spluttered. Like, she trained you or literally sculpted you? Shiro asked, flustered. Izuku smirked. Both, technically. Nearly every guy turned red at the XBLCT implications. Out on the field, Aizawa stood in front of the group, arms crossed. You'll be doing physical assessments today, but using your quirks or abilities. This is to determine your capabilities in a combat-ready state. Midoriya, you were the top scorer in the entrance exam. You go first. He tossed a standard softball toward Izuku. Show us what you've got. Izuku nodded, stepping forward. Izumi stood just away to the side, hands folded behind her back, watching with a faint smile. Izuku drew in mana, wrapping sigils around his arm in glowing threads of light. With a calm breath, he reeled back and launched the ball skyward. A streak of green light followed the trajectory. The ball vanished into the atmosphere. The device beeped. 8,694 meters. The silence was deafening. Then Mino whispered, I'm sorry. What? Before screaming the last bit. Kirishima dropped his ball. We're dead. We're all dead. Aizawa didn't flinch. He scribbled a note on his clipboard. That's the bar. Now let's see how the rest of you do. And so began their first day, already unforgettable thanks to one calm powerhouse and the spirit who stood by him. Following Izuku's awe-inspiring display during the ball throw, the rest of class 1A stood under the hot sun with varying degrees of excitement, nervousness, and competitive fire. Izumi, ever present beside Izuku, stood close enough that her shoulder brushed his. She held his hand openly when they weren't performing, occasionally, resting her palm on his chest or tracing small circles on his back. Her presence was constant, calm, affectionate, unwavering. The rest of the class began to notice whispers growing with every moment. Is she really always touching him? Mina whispered. They're ridiculously close, Shiro muttered. Doesn't seem like he even minds, Jiro added, watching Izuku's face for any signs of discomfort. Despite the attention, Izuku stayed focused. A light blush sometimes touched his face, but he didn't protest Izumi's closeness. In fact, he seemed used to it. 50-meter dash Tenya Ida stepped up first. Engines revved at his calves as he launched forward. With precision. His time, 3.04 seconds. Impressive, Aizawa grunted. Next, Izuku moved forward. Izumi released his hand reluctantly and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek. Focus. Mana through your legs, and don't overextend. Izuku nodded. He dashed forward, green lines of energy sparking away his limbs. His time, 3.30 seconds. Not bad at all, Aizawa muttered. As Izuku walked back, Izumi met him halfway, lacing her fingers into his and gently patting his lower back. The rest of the class exchanged glances. This feels private to watch. Kaminari whispered. Grip strength. Kirishima's hardening quirk led to an incredible 340 kilograms. A few students clapped. Izuku's turn came next. He closed his eyes, infused mana into his arm, and squeezed. 985 kilograms. Hey Chow, how is this Deku so strong? Bakugo screamed within his mind. The Deku he'd been beating up now has surpassed him. Izumi clapped gently beside him. Still room for growth, but you've gotten stronger. Her hand lingered along his bicep. Ciro coughed awkwardly. Okay, but seriously, is no one going to ask about their thing? He asked. Leave them be, Tokoyami said quietly. Their connection is deep. Standing long jump, Izuku powered up with a brief pulse of energy at his heels and launched himself beyond the pit. A clean, smooth leap. Izumi was at his landing point with a towel, wiping his brow before he even caught his breath. You floated too much at the apex. Next time keep your core tighter, she said softly. I'm trying. He chuckled. Achiko blinked at them. Are they always like this? Every second we've seen, Jiraiya said. Repeated side steps, the agility test brought out competition. Ida moved with robotic precision. Mina danced through with flair. Izuku kept his stance narrow, letting mana reinforce his knees. Throughout it all, Izumi stood at the edge, arms folded, watching like a coach or a lover who memorized every movement. Occasionally, she'd call out corrections. Faster pivot, lower your center. She's like a clingy girlfriend and a coach, Kaminari whispered. And he's fine with it, Momo noted. More than fine. After all of the tests, some students were happy that they scored high, some are saddened they didn't have the chance at the first moment there. Teacher waiting for their potential, and they lacked short. 1. Izuku Midoriya, his name, was on top. He won this one around, and much to Izuku's chagrin, a glaring Bakugo staring daggers into his soul could be seen behind him, while Izumi lovingly hugs Izuku's left arm. The sun had dipped below the horizon, casting a warm amber hue over UA's campus. Most of the students had returned to their dorms, tired and sore from the day's tests, but Izuku and Izumi lingered in the training field. The air was still. The chirping of distant crickets and the fading wind were the only sounds that remained. Izuku sat on the edge of a bench, arms resting on his knees, sweat still clinging to his brow. Izumi knelt behind him, carefully wringing out a cloth and wiping down his back. You pushed yourself today, she said softly, her tone light with praise. More than usual. I had to, Izuku murmured, his gaze lowered. It's UA now. It's the real. Everyone's so strong. And you're at the top, Izumi reminded him. Don't forget that. Izuku smiled faintly. I didn't do it alone. You've been with me the whole way. She paused, hand lingering against the fabric of his shirt. I always will be, she whispered. Izuku turned his head, their eyes meeting in the golden twilight. There was something unspoken between them, something that had lingered beneath every word, every moment they'd shared since she first took physical form. Izumi, he said slowly, almost unsure. All this time, I thought you were part of me, like an extension, but I think you're more than that. She stepped around the bench, kneeling before him, her hands reaching up to cradle his face. I am part of you, Izuku, she said, but not in the way you used to believe. I've grown, and so have you. His hand moved to rest over hers, and they simply stared at each other for a long, quiet moment. Then, without overthinking it, Izuku leaned forward. Their lips met gently. It wasn't rushed or heated, but slow, and uncertain, a quiet acknowledgement of everything they'd gone through and everything they now understood. Izumi's eyes fluttered closed, and she let herself melt into the kiss, her fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. When they finally parted, both were breathless, not from intensity, but from emotion. Izuku laughed softly. So, I guess we're really together now. We always were, she replied with a smile. But now we both know it. The stars began to peek through the sky, casting a faint glow over them as they sat quietly, their fingers entwined, hearts steady. For the first time in a long time, Izuku felt completely at peace. And in Izumi's eyes, he found not just strength, but love. The morning sun poured through the kitchen window, casting soft light over the cozy Midoriya home. The sound of running water and the gentle clinking of dishes echoed in the room. Izuku stood at the sink, sleeves rolled up, washing the breakfast. Plates with practiced focus. Beside him, Izumi dried the dishes with a towel, though her attention was mostly on him rather than the chore. Without warning, she slipped her arms around his waist from behind, resting her chin gently on his shoulder. "You're doing great, you." "No," she whispered. Izuku chuckled, the smile on his face blooming naturally as he continued. "To rinse a plate. I'm just washing dishes. And yet you still make it look heroic," Izumi teased, tightening her hug slightly. From the doorway, Inko Midoriya watched the scene with a soft, thoughtful smile. She had grown used to Izumi's presence over the years. At first she thought her son was imagining things since when as little he would always talk to himself, but it never ceased to touch her heart how much warmth and care the mysterious girl brought into her son's life. What struck her most was how effortlessly happy Izuku looked. Every time Izumi showered him with action, be it a hug, a whisper, or just resting close, his face would light up in a way Inko hadn't seen since he was a young boy dreaming of being a hero. She stepped further into the room with a gentle voice. "You two make quite the team." Izuku turned, cheeks slightly pink. "Mom, good morning. I was going to handle the rest." He greets his mother. "You already are," Inko said warmly. "I just wanted to watch for a moment." Izumi leaned up and owered a cheerful smile. "He's the best dishwashing partner I could ask for." Inko smiled knowingly. "And you make sure he knows it," Inko urged Izumi. As the last dish was set on the drying rack, Izuku dried his hands and turned to Izumi, poking her lightly on the forehead. "Now that the chores are done, can I go back to practicing my Anos lines?" Izuku said, while Izumi raised a brow. "You're still on that?" She had grown accustomed to his little hobby of watching anime to the point that he had picked up some magic from them and speeches. Izuku stepped back dramatically, lifting a hand as though declaring something from a throne. "Did you think killing me is enough to make me die?" he said in a mimicking tone. He tried his best, though. Izumi deadpanned. "That's not how dying works, my love." Inko covered her mouth to stifle a laugh, shaking her head. "You, too, honestly." Izuku burst into laughter, leaning against the counter. "Come on, admit it. That line was kind of epic." "Maybe," Izumi said, gently poking his side. "But only if you can say it without bursting into laughter next time." Their shared laughter filled the kitchen, echoing like music against the walls. After breakfast was cleaned up and everything put away, Inko grabbed her bag and shoes. "I'll be out for a while. Grocery run and a few errands. Don't be late for school." "We won't," Izuku and Izumi called in unison. As the front door shut behind her, the apartment quieted. The sunlight spilled into their shared room where their UA uniforms were neatly hung. After changing, Izuku walked out to find Izumi already dressed, brushing down the sleeve of her blazer. He paused, watching her for a moment. The way the morning light framed her face, the calm in her eyes, the familiar flutter of something strong and real stirring in his chest. She turned, catching him staring. "What is it?" she said. Izuku stepped closer, voice softer than before. "Nothing. Just you being the most appealing woman I laid my eyes on." Izumi's smile was knowing, warm. She took a step closer until they stood nearly chest to chest. "Izuku, out here calling his face appealing, the pride of this man." "Then say it," lifting his hand to her cheek, brushing his fingers gently along her jaw. "I love you," he whispered lovingly. She leaned into his touch. "I know. I love you too. You're the most perfect man any lady could ask." She reciprocated his sweet words with her own. Their lips met in the next heartbeat. It was not rushed, not hurried by time or urgency. It was slow, deep, and full of emotion. A quiet connection shared in the stillness of morning. Izuku's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. Izumi responded by sliding her fingers behind his neck, deepening the kiss with a gentle certainty that neither of them questioned. They held on to each other as if the world outside didn't exist. Just warmth, trust, and the silent vow that whatever the day held, they would face it together. When they parted, breath still shared between them, Izuku whispered, "We should get going." Izumi chuckled, lips still brushing against his. "Right, before we forget." School entirely. With one last smile and their hands interlocked, they stepped into their shoes, grabbed their bags, and headed out the door. Together, into the world. And behind them, the quiet warmth of home lingered like the kiss they'd shared, deep, true, and unforgettable. After the last PRD before lunch, the halls of UA buzzed with the usual rush of students heading toward the cafeteria. Laughter, footsteps, and the low hum of chatter filled the air. Izuku walked beside Izumi, their fingers naturally intertwined. Despite the crowds, they moved at an easy pace, calm in each other's presence. The enticing aroma of freshly cooked food greeted them as they stepped into the cafeteria. Lunch Rush had outdone himself again. Steamed rice, sizzling meat, fresh vegetables, and trays of savory meals lined the serving counters. They picked up their lunch trays and found an open table near the center of the room. Not long after they sat, a few students from Class 1A joined them. Tsuyu Azui sat across from Izuku, her usual neutral expression in place. Beside her came Hagakure, cheerful and bright as ever, even if only her floating uniform gave her away. "Hey, Midoriya, mind if we sit here?" Tsuyu asked. "Not at all," Izuku replied with a smile, while gesturing them to sit. Izumi quietly greeted them both, owing a polite nod as she remained close beside Izuku. As they started eating, Hagakure leaned forward, her voice excited. "You guys are so cute together. Seriously, I didn't think Midoriya had it in him. He looked so innocent and angel." Izuku laughed nervously. "It's not something I planned." Sue, always blunt, tilted her head. "It's kind of weird, Ribbit. She's always by your side. Like, really always. Is that healthy?" she asked, curious about the two's dynamic when not in school. Izumi blinked. "We've been together for years. It's not strange to us. Plus, we only became oatial this month." Tsuyu didn't reply immediately, then gave a slow nod. "As long as it works for you. You both seem stable. Just intense." "That's fair," Izuku admitted, sipping from his drink. From a few tables away, a voice cut through the relative peace. "Bro, seriously, that twin-looking chick with Midoriya is hot. Like, how'd he bag someone like her?" It was Mineta, whispering too loudly to Kaminari. Kaminari grimaced. "Dude, don't be weird. Some weird anime plot might bite you in the butt." No, think about it. That figure? That hair?" Mineta tried, explaining, but mid-explanation. Crack. The entire table jolted. A metal spoon had been thrown, with such force that it pierced the wooden surface of Mineta's table, quivering inches from his hand. All eyes turned. Izuku stood slowly from his seat, gaze locked onto Mineta. His expression was cold, dangerously calm, but there's a ghostly figure of a demon behind Izuku, as if it's his aura. "Mineta," he said, voice low. "Keep talking like that, and next time I won't miss." He threatened. Mineta paled, sweat beading instantly at his forehead. "Hey man, I was just joking. It was a compliment dash. That's not a compliment." Izuku cut in, stepping forward. "That's disrespect. Don't talk about her like she's a poster on your wall, ever." Izumi didn't say anything. She didn't have to. The quiet hand that slid into Izuku's again said enough. Kaminari gave Mineta a sharp nudge. "Dude, shut up. Seriously." The cafeteria returned to its usual noise. Soon enough, though a few heads turned here and there. Izuku sat back down, sighing deeply. Hagakure blinked. Well, that escalated. So you chewed on a piece of lettuce. "You know, I kinda respect that. With how much he stares at Yaoyorozu, I'd say he deserves it." Izumi leaned against Izuku's shoulder. "Thanks." He smiled softly. "Always." Lunch went on, but everyone at that table now understood one thing clearly. When it came to Izumi, Izuku Midoriya didn't play around. A full day had passed since the lunchroom incident, and class resumed as normal, or so it seemed. students filtered into the 1A classroom, half alert with morning energy, half lulled. Into routine. Izuku and Izumi sat near the middle, quietly talking and going over their notes while Aizawa was nowhere to be seen. It was just a regular school morning until the door slammed, open with explosive force. I am coming through the door like a normal person. Gasps, startled flinches, and outright cheers erupted across the classroom as the towering figure of All Might, in his powered-up form, strode in with his trademark grin and glimmering presence. All Might, several students said in unison. Kirishima nearly jumped out of his seat. Whoa, no way. He's our teacher today. Uraraka clapped her hands together. This is so cool. The #1 hero in Japan is our teacher. Even Todoroki, usually unreadable, raised an eyebrow in mild interest. All Might gave a thumbs up, chest pooed out with pride. That's right. Young heroes. Today marks the start of your foundational hero training, and I'll be leading the charge. Izuku blinked in surprise. I didn't think he'd be here this soon. Izumi leaned in close. He's still as theatrical as ever. That's part of his charm. Izuku replied with a faint smile, hiding a nervous flutter in his chest. He's still a fanatic fanboy, but not as bad. All Might step further. Into the classroom, arms wide. Today, we're starting with the most critical component of a hero's life, battle training. A wave of excitement swept through the students. Finally, I can show that damn Deku and his twin Beach that I'm better than them. I'm born to be the best. You DMN extras. Izuku glanced at Bakugo. He already knows what the blonde was thinking. General idea of it. All Might pointed dramatically toward the back wall. Suit. Up and report to ground beta in 15 minutes. Your hero costumes await. The class burst into motion as All Might gave a final booming laugh, cape fluttering behind him. Izuku stood, hands still laced with Izumi's. She smiled at him, reading his energy immediately. Ready to show them what you've got? She asked. He nodded, a spark of determination lighting his eyes. Absolutely. The next test of UA awaited them, and with All Might watching, the stakes had never felt higher. 15 minutes later, at ground beta, the students began arriving one by one in their personalized hero outfits. When Izuku stepped into view, heads turned. His hero costume was a striking blend of modern elegance and tactical design. Black and blue dominated the scheme. Fitted black trousers with silver clasps running up the calves, paired with a sleek, high-collared jacket etched with intricate patterns that spiraled subtly across his chest. A dark blue cape flared from beneath the jacket, its underside catching the light with every movement. A stylized belt slung diagonally across his waist, with a thigh strap holding a sleek, custom utility pouch. Fingerless gloves wrapped his hands, and a light shimmer hinted at a reinforced weave beneath. The stylish exterior. It was a look that demanded attention, calculated, composed, and undeniably powerful. Whispers spread through the crowd. That's Midoriya. He looks like a pro already. That suit's insane. Izumi, standing nearby in her own elegant, form-fitting attire, beamed with pride as she watched him adjust a qua. Izuku exhaled, then looked toward the training building, assessing it. The symbol of peace was watching. This was his moment, and he intended to leave no doubt behind. The battle training had started with thunderous excitement. Under All Might's supervision, students were split into teams and pitted against each other in mock hero versus villain scenarios. It was a test of power, strategy, and instinct, a true preview of their potential. Each match revealed something daring: Ida's speed and DSBLN, Uraraka's clever use of gravity, Todoroki's control of his icy birthright, still not revealing his fireside, Kirishima's unbreakable spirit. One by one, students clashed, learned, and grew. But through it all, there was an unspoken tension, a slow build in the air as the class waited for one specific team to be called. Finally it came. Team H, Midoriya and Yaire's All Might, called out, voice loud and clear, versus Team K, Bakugo, and Kaminari. The room stirred. Immediately, eyes flicked between Izuku and Katsuki. The tension that had followed them since day one now had a battleground. In the observation room, students gathered around the monitors. Even Aizawa, arms crossed, watched with a flicker of interest beneath his tired gaze. Izumi stood among them, arms lightly crossed and eyes sharp. "Pay close attention," she said, aloud, drawing the class's attention. "You're about to see why he's not the same Midoriya you knew a few days ago. I made sure my darling is prepared for something like this." The training field came to life. As the buzzer rang, Izuku and Momo moved like clockwork. Izumi pointed to the screens. "He's not charging in recklessly. See how he waits for Bakugo to make the first move? That's bait. He wants to study Bakugo's rhythm." On the monitor, Bakugo charged in, grenade gauntlets primed and eyes burning. But Izuku didn't flinch. "He's reading him," Izumi continued. "Every movement, every step. He's watching for tells like a chess MSTR, setting up the board." Their clash lit the field in bursts of light and flame. Izuku parried each blast, his footwork tight and controlled. The force of Bakugo's explosions pushed back, but Izuku met them with grounded precision. "Why the hell are you smiling?" Bakugo shouted during their clash. Izuku's reply was calm. "Because I've already won." "He's provoking him," Izumi explained. "He knows. Bakugo fights worse when he's emotional. So he's dismantling him piece by piece mentally and physically." The rest of the class stared at her in awe. Her insights are, well, insightful. Kaminari tried to flank, but a shield from Yairozu disrupted his attack. Within moments, she secured him with precision. Izumi nodded. "Momo's covering his blind spots." That was his suggestion. She's his tactical support. He trusts her to hold the structure while he engages. Back on the field, the real storm brewed. Another clash. Another explosion. Then Izuku unleashed it. With a sweep of his arm, the air warped with compressed force. A burst of power surged from his palm, rippling through the air like a shockwave. It collided with Bakugo's final charge, and the blonde was hurled backward, crashing into the reinforced wall. Gasps echoed in the observation room. The buzzer sounded. Team H wins, All Might announced. Izuku stood still, chest rising steadily, expression unreadable. Bakugo groaned from the ground, his pride fractured more than his body. Izumi exhaled quietly. That was only about 5% of what he's capable of. Mineta swallowed hard. 5. He held back that much, but he almost destroyed the entire building. Tsuyu muttered. "No," Izumi corrected. He adapted, because the old Izuku would've overpowered without control. This one, he delivers messages with restraint. The class fell into silence, because in that moment, one truth became undeniable. The boy Bakugo, once bullied, had grown into someone who didn't need to shout, didn't need to prove himself with anger. Izuku Midoriya had arrived, and he made sure Katsuki Bakugo understood he was never going to catch up to the boy he thought he broke. So, dear students, would you like to guess who's the MVP for this match? All Might asked the students they didn't need to. Almost everyone pointed at one person. Izumi was the MVP for them. Even as a bystander, her insight of the match, breaking it down to the bone, was insightful. Even Izuku didn't mind and smiled at her. The day after battle training brought a much calmer tone to Class 1A. The energy was more relaxed, though quiet glances toward Izuku reminded everyone of yesterday's decisive showdown. Aizawa entered the classroom, sleeping bag in tow as usual, and yawned as he addressed the class. "We'll be assigning class representatives. A democratic vote. Make your choice in turn, in your ballots." Not bothering to let his class think of another way to elect a class representative, they'd only cause more trouble and chaos than be logical. The class murmured excitedly. Hands quickly scribbled names down on slips of paper. Once all ballots were collected and tallied. Aizawa raised a brow as he read the results. Well, this was overwhelming. Midoriya wins by a landslide. Several students clapped, while others nodded knowingly. Kirishima grinned. Of course it's him. After yesterday, he earned it. Uraraka smiled warmly. I voted for Deku too. He's really got what it takes. Tsuyu gave a simple, ribbit. Seems fair. As the murmurs continued, a SCOA broke through the classroom. Tisich, seriously? You extras all voted. For Deku. Bakugo spat from his seat, arms crossed tightly, glaring daggers across the room. Just because he got lucky once doesn't mean he's leader material. Kaminari leaned back in his chair, raising an eyebrow. Well, yeah, who wouldn't vote for the guy who wiped the floor? With you in front of everyone, he said, voice dripping with mock innocence. It's kind of a confidence booster. Some students chuckled under their breath. Bakugo growled lowly, turning his glare toward Kaminari, but said nothing more. Meanwhile, Izuku stood up from his seat, gently lifting Izumi as she sat sideways across his lap, arms loosely around his neck. Thanks for the votes, everyone, Izuku said calmly, brushing a hand through his hair. But I'm passing the role. I don't need a title to lead. He turned to Momo, who blinked in surprise. Yaoyorozu, you've got the composure, intelligence, and fairness to guide the class. You should be our class republic. Izuku arched his hand forward and pointed at Yaoyorozu. Momo looked stunned. Midoriya, thank you. I'll do my best. Izuku then pointed to Ida. And for vice rep, it should be Ida. He's organized, precise, and probably has 10 charts about this already. Ida blinked, then stood up. So suddenly his chair scraped back. Midoriya, I am honored beyond measure. I will serve to the best of my ability. Ida almost took a knee to thank Izuku. Izuku knew too what Ida really wanted. This job. Aizawa gave a quiet grunt of approval. Fine by me, as long as it works, their teacher flat out said. As the class adjusted to the new roles, Izumi remained comfortably seated on Izuku's lap, gently resting her chin on his shoulder. You're good at deflecting attention and responsibility, she whispered with amusement. And you're good at stealing mine. You're the only one I'd take responsibility for. You know that, Izumi. He replied softly, earning a hidden smile. From her, recess came after the class vote, and many students of Class 1A made their way to the cafeteria to wind down. The energy was upbeat, conversations lively as they carried their trays and laughed about the earlier vote. Izuku sat with Izumi, Ida, Uraraka, Yaoyorozu, and a few others at one of the larger tables. Izumi had one hand on Izuku's arm while speaking softly, with Uraraka and Momo about lunch preferences, while Ida tried to explain to Kaminari the importance of respecting food tray arrangement. Izuku took a quiet moment to scan the cafeteria, still alert, even during breaks. Something in his gut felt OA, but he couldn't place it. Not yet. Then it happened. A violent, loud crack echoed through the building. The lights above flickered. Then the security alarms blared through the entire school. All around them, students froze or dropped their utensils. Panic rippled across the cafeteria like a tidal wave. Chairs screeched, trays clattered, and voices rose in alarm. From the large windows, they could all see. It clearly now the front gate of UA had been reduced to nothing but ash. The iron frame had crumbled as if dissolved. Something or someone had decayed the entire structure with terrifying precision. Was that a quirk? Are we under attack? Students began rushing toward the exits, colliding with one another, some calling out to teachers, others just shouting incoherently. But not everyone panicked. Izuku stood up slowly, pulling Izumi with him. His eyes narrowed. Everyone calm down, he said, voice raised but steady. We don't know the full situation yet. This could be a false alarm or something staged. Panicking will only make it worse. His words didn't stop the whole room, but they anchored those close to him. Ida immediately took Izuku's cue. He's right. Everyone should remain seated unless instructed. Otherwise, line up if we need to evacuate. Izumi scanned the distance beyond the gate. That decay wasn't normal. It's not from a reporter crowding and someone had intent. Yaoyorozu frowned. It looked too precise, too controlled. Then she turned to Izumi as if waiting for something. I know, this isn't just an accident caused by a desperate mob of reporters. This is a distraction. Quick, be ready. Izumi commanded them as they gone stie. Kaminari scratched the back of his head nervously. Then it's not just some aggressive journalist trying to get a scoop. Uraraka bit her lip. You think it's a villain? Izumi-chan said it's a distraction. So, something might attack us or other students, she said, while ready to fight. Izuku's voice dropped. I don't think. I know. As more SDA arrived and began directing students, the tension only deepened. Emergency security protocols were activated. Teachers moved fast, but whatever decayed, that gate had already sent its message. The fortress that was supposed to be Yue had a weakness, and someone had just exploited it. Izuku watched the remains of the gate smolder. He knew this wasn't over. And he's right. After the incident at the front gate, students were herded back to their classrooms under strict faculty supervision. Security drones buzzed overhead, and a noticeable shift in the atmosphere settled over UA High. The once safe fortress now felt slightly vulnerable. Class 1A sat in silence, the buzz of conversation gone. The occasional glance toward Izuku and Izumi, still calm, still composed, became more frequent. They had been anchors during the panic, and their classmates now looked to them for steadiness. The door slid open, and Aizawa stepped in. He looked more grim than usual. Listen up, he began, dropping a file folder onto the desk with a solid thud. What happened today wasn't just a random breach. It wasn't a test or an accident. Murmurs began to rise. He raised a hand, silencing them. Someone or something used a quirk to decay the gate and bypassed several layers of UA's security. After a full sweep, the faculty has confirmed that several digital files from the school's internal network were accessed remotely during the distraction. Yaoyorozu's eyes widened. What kind of files? Some of the class mirrored her curiosity. Aizawa nodded. Specifically, class schedules, quirk evaluations, rotation lists, and the dorm plans that Principal Nizu has been working on. Informed them. Gasps spread through the room. They know when and where we'll be. Kaminari asked, paling. Aizawa's tired eyes swept the room. Exactly. Whoever did this has intimate knowledge of our logistics now. That means every exercise, every open location, and potentially every vulnerability. Izuku's expression hardened. He has some idea what kind of plan these villains are planning. Izumi, who was sitting on Izuku's lap, spoke quietly. They're planning something. This wasn't just for intimidation. This was reconnaissance. Suyu frowned. So what happens now? Asked, her voice somehow coded. Why worry? Aizawa crossed his arms. From this point on, UA is under an elevated security protocol. All OA campus events will be reviewed. Hero course movements will be monitored more strictly, and none of you are to leave the grounds without a licensed pro hero SCRT. Ida stood, his voice laced with urgency. Sir, is the safety of our class in danger? Aizawa didn't answer right away. Then, slowly, he said, it may not be today. It may not be tomorrow. But whoever did this, they're preparing something. And you all need to be ready. Silence once more. Izuku lowered his gaze, fists clenched. The game had changed, and now it was only a matter of time before the next move was made. He'll make sure he's 10 steps ahead of whoever did this. Whoever you are, what kind of game are you playing that you'd use students? Izuku gritted his teeth, an aura of frustration clouding his mind, but that frustration was gone the moment Izumi rested Izuku's head on her huge chest. He calmed down like a storm subsiding. His frustration also disappeared thanks to the calming gesture Izumi did. I'm here, Izuku, she reassured. The day went on as a final thought, made the principle of UA's resolve to protect his students. The light of the future must never flicker out. Nizu entered Class 1A's classroom and only spoke. Aizawa, let me inform them of the dormitory plan. Murmurs again escalated within the classroom. But one thing was certain, if that plan went through, they'd be safe. Izuku firmly held Izumi's hand while she ruawed Izuku's hair. In a secure, soundproof conference room deep within the administrative wing of UA, Principal Nizu stood atop a reinforced table, his paws clasped behind his back as he addressed a collection of UA's top faculty members. Around him sat Aizawa, All Might, Present Mike, Vlad King, Power Loader, Cementos, Midnight, and a few others from various departments. Projected behind Nizu was a digital display, schematics, of the main building, overlaid with breach markers and timelines of the recent infiltration. Red alerts blinked persistently in the corner of the screen, detailing the compromised files class, schedules, quirk data, and logistical movements. There's no question anymore, Nizu began, voice grave yet composed. This was not a test. It was a surgical information raid. They knew exactly what to target, and they succeeded. All Might, now in his base form and sitting quietly, near the end of the table, clenched a fist. They know too much now. We're exposed. Aizawa, lean forward. If they're studying our rotations, they're preparing an ambush. Not just for Class 1A, but any of our departments. Nizu nodded, which is why I'm instituting the dorm system immediately. The room quieted. Effective within the next 48 hours, Nizu continued. Every first-year student from classes 1A, 1B, and the entirety of the support course will be relocated to secure on-campus dormitories. Vlad King raised a brow. All of them? That's a massive shift. I'm aware, Nizu replied. But the potential loss from inaction is greater. If our students remain scattered across different districts, they become easier targets. Within dorm walls, under our protection, they have a chance to grow stronger while staying safe. Midnight crossed her arms. And the parents? Letters and you the stas will go out by tomorrow. Emergency protocols allow for this kind of housing shift. And frankly, Nizu said, glancing back at the red files blinking on the screen, most will understand once they realize their children were nearly part of a targeted infiltration. Power Loader muttered, this will mean accelerated construction. I'll put the support SDA on double shifts. Nizu turned to All Might and Aizawa. You two will help ease the transition with the students. They listen to you. They'll need you, especially now. Aizawa gave a nod. All Might smiled faintly. Of course. Nizu's ears twitched, the only sign of the stress building beneath his composed exterior. This is just the first move, he said quietly. And if they've already broken into our gates, we must assume they'll try again. Outside the meeting room, Yue remained calm, but the clock had started ticking, and inside, war preparations had begun. With Principal Nizu's orders issued, Yue mobilized quickly. SDA divided into teams, personally visiting or calling each student's guardian to explain the situation, provide details about the breach, and make the case for why the dorm system was now unnecessary. Despite the severity of the matter, the overwhelming majority of parents gave their consent. Class 1 BS families, though surprised, agreed without resistance. Power Loaders. Heartfelt explanation to the support course families proved reassuring, highlighting the extra security and opportunity for collaboration. Many even expressed gratitude for the schools. Transparency. Uraraka's parents were nervous but relented after hearing from Aizawa. Ida's family approved immediately, already understanding the value of structure and control. Kaminari's mom was reluctant until she learned there would be reinforced curfews and multiple pro-heroes on site. Tsuyu's parents were calm and logical as always, and Koda's mother sent in written approval within the hour. Eventually, it came down to one final home visit. The Midoriya household. Aizawa sat at the kitchen table across from Inko Midoriya, his usual tired expression. Present but sincere as he explained the breach, the stolen class schedules, and the growing threat of villain involvement. Izuku and Izumi sat on the couch nearby, holding hands quietly. Inko's fingers trembled slightly as she set down a teacup. They targeted UA students. Directly? Yes, Aizawa confirmed. And they acquired knowledge of their locations, quirks, and movement schedules. If Izuku and his classmates remain OA campus, they'll be easier to isolate and target. Inko's eyes drifted toward her son, then to Izumi, who gently rested her head on Izuku's shoulder. The two had grown so closer than most their age. She could see in her son's eyes that he wasn't afraid, but he was ready. I know how strong my boy has become, Inko said softly, but he's still my son, which is why we're wearing something more, Aizawa added. We're building SDA housing adjacent to the dorms. We'd like to hire a civilian caretaker for daily life support, cooking, comfort, someone the students can trust outside of faculty. You'd be perfect, Mrs. Midoriya. Inko blinked. You're offering me a job? Yes. You'd be near Izuku, near Izumi, and you'd help all the students. Izuku's head rose in surprise. Mom, you don't have to. I want to, she said immediately, a determined look in her eyes. I'd be able to support you and all your friends. I can't fight villains, but I can give you a warm meal and a safe place to come home to. Izumi smiled warmly. You'd be our guardian angel. Aizawa nodded. We'll handle the paperwork. We'd like you moved in before the end of the week. Inko took a deep breath. She stood up, walked over to her son, and embraced both Izuku and Izumi tightly. Then it's settled. Let's keep everyone safe. Together. Outside, the preparations for the dorms were well underway, and in that small apartment, another piece of UA's future clicked into place. UA High was taking no chances, with the security breach still fresh in everyone's minds and the knowledge that villains now had access to the student schedules. Principal Nizu adjusted every field operation, and among the most critical of these was the unforeseen Simulation Joint, or USJ, originally intended to be a simple disaster rescue training scenario. The USJ plan was immediately reinforced. Faculty agreed. The risk was too high to proceed with only the original supervision of 13 and Aizawa. So, reinforcements were called in. Mirko, the rabbit hero, arrived first. I heard you were doing training and expecting trouble, she grinned, cracking her knuckles. About time someone invited me to something fun, energetic, and unpredictable. Mirko needed no convincing. She had been growing restless between patrols and was eager for an excuse to throw a kick or two. Her presence brought a jolt of intensity to the air as she inspected the USJ facility alongside the SDA. Next came Ed Shot. Principal Nizu extended the OA personally, he said with his usual calm. Given the data breach, it would be irresponsible not to reinforce your ranks. His presence was swift and quiet, moving like a shadow through the building. Aizawa trusted him, and having another pro who could respond instantly to any emergency was an added layer of comfort for the SDA. Then came Ryukyu. I normally wouldn't interfere in first-year operations, she admitted, adjusting her sleeves, but Nijire wouldn't stop calling me. Apparently, she's got a few juniors she's rooting for. One in particular, added Mirko with a teasing smirk. I heard about that green-haired one. What's his name? Midoriya? Ryukyu uttered only a knowing smile. By the time Class 1A arrived at the USJ facility, the atmosphere had changed drastically. The building's massive dome structure stood, imposing as ever, but now security drones hovered above, and 3 additional pro heroes stood waiting near the entrance alongside 13 and Aizawa. The students stepped away the bus and all. Wait, is that Mirko? Kirishima nearly shouted. Ed Shot too. This isn't normal, right? Kaminari whispered. Izuka narrowed his eyes, but remained composed. Izumi stood beside him, linking her fingers with his. Something's changed, he murmured. They are preparing for more than a drill. Then we'll be ready, Izumi whispered back, while coiling her. Fingers on Izuku's hand. Aizawa stepped forward, voice sharp. Listen up. This is still training, but you're not wrong to be on edge. We've brought in extra heroes as a precaution. You follow orders, and you keep your heads clear. 13 gave her usual safety rundown, explaining the nature of the USJ, simulations of floods, landslides, fires, and other disasters. The students listened, but their eyes never left the heroes nearby. Somewhere beyond the reinforced dome, walls, shadows were gathering. But inside the USJ, UA wasn't backing down. They were ready for anything, or so they thought. As 13 finished briefing the students, a pulse of distortion rippled across the center plaza. Lights dimmed. The air thickened. Then, without warning, a swirling mass of violet mist expanded in the middle of the facility. Something's warping in, Izuku said sharply, stepping protectively in front of Izumi. A vortex of purple fog spiraled outward, forming into a tall figure in a black suit. A single yellow eye gleamed from the shifting mist. So sorry to interrupt your field trip, the entity said calmly. But I'm afraid your time is up. Aizawa's eyes flashed red, his capture scarf whipping out as he shouted. Everyone, stay back. That's a warp-type villain. The mist solidified fully. My name is Kirojiri, it announced. We are the League of Villains, and today we've come for all might. From within the warped gate, more figures stepped out, dozens of them. Some tall and grotesque, others armored, others eerily normal. But what unified them was their hunger for violence. They spread out like a pack of wolves. And then he emerged, a man with pale skin, decaying hands gripping his face, scratching at his neck. His eyes were sunken, and his presence felt unnatural. Tamura Shigaraki. Tisi, All Might's not here? What a waste, Shigaraki muttered, voice laced with disappointment and disdain. His fingers twitched. I told Kirojiri this would be stupid. But beside him, the floor quaked as a massive figure stepped through the portal behind them. Towering, grotesque, bulging with muscle. A Nomu. Even the pros on the ground tensed at its presence. Ed shots. Hand hovered near his side. Mirko grinned, lowering into a combat stance. Ryukyu's eyes narrowed. Aizawa activated his quirk immediately. Villains confirmed. Engage with caution. Aizawa barked. Chaos erupted. The villains began charging. Students screamed. 13 moved to protect them with her quirk ready. Aizawa leapt into the fray, his scarf whipping from target to target. Izuku pulled Izumi behind a slab of debris. Izumi, we need to protect the others. Prioritize evacuation. We hold the line until the teachers push them back. Izumi nodded, eyes focused. And if they get too close, then we show them who they're messing with. The League of Villains had made their entrance, but they had no idea what UA had waiting for them. Not just pro-heroes, but students ready to fight back. Or so they thought. Headshot moved first. In a blink, his body split into thin blades of compressed muscle, weaving through the incoming villains and immobilizing two with surgical precision. Mirko followed, launching herself with a battle cry and a spinning heel kick that shattered the ribcage of a mutant type villain. She landed with a smirk, already crouched for another leap. Come on, who's next? She bellowed. Aizawa activated his erasure immediately and dove into the thick of it, his scarf, binding and disarming a four-armed attacker while his eyes shut down another's fire-based quirk. Ryukyu had taken her full dragon form, roaring as she barreled into a cluster of enemies, her tail sweeping multiple grunts aside like ragdolls. Her wings spread wide, asserting depths over the ground-level chaos. Meanwhile, 13 positioned herself in front of the students. Her body tensed, hand raised and glowing with gravitational energy. Stay back. Your job is to evacuate. The pros will handle this. But Katsuki Bakugo was already trembling with tension, his palm sparking. Like hell, we're just going to stand here. I'm not letting them do all the fighting. While we hide like weaklings. Bakugo. Ida. Snapped, but Bakugo was already marching forward, ignoring the glares and warnings. We got quirks too, and I'm not going to let some extras outshine me in battle. 13's hand rose higher, her voice firm. No, you're not trained for this level of combat. We can't risk dash than it happened. A thunderous crash shook the foundation of the plaza. All eyes turned. Ryukyu's massive dragon form was hurled through the air, struck with devastating force, and slammed into the reinforced wall of the USJ. The impact cratered the surface. Rubble fell. A plume of dust erupted. She let out a growl of pain as her body slid to the ground, visibly injured. The battlefield froze. 13's voice caught in her throat. Even Bakugo faltered. Across the field, the Nomu stood in the center of a smoking crater, arm extended from the blow. Behind him, Shigaraki chuckled darkly. Let's see what happens when the heroes fall first. Silence reigned for a split second, and then the panic began again. But now something had shifted. Even the pros weren't invincible. Izuku's eyes flared from green to gold. I didn't think I need to use it, but I need you to work with me now. Beelzebuth. Hey. Dark flames enveloped. The projectile attack meant to hit Izumi and his classmates was devoured. It's a battle between heroes and villains, and the apex predator chaos ruled the USJ. The villains had made their move, and the pro heroes had retaliated with force, but it was not enough to prevent the rising tide of danger. Ryukyu's crash into the wall sent fear rippling through the student ranks. But amidst the panic, Izuku Midoriya stood still. His eyes were sharp, focused. A pulse of golden light briefly flickered across his pupils' instinct, knowledge, and power converging. The students behind 13 flinched, but Izuku stepped forward. Izumi joined him, calm and resolute. Bakugo looked ready to explode from tension. And then it happened. Kirojiri expanded, his mist swirling ominously as his disembodied voice rang out. I will scatter you across this facility. Let's separate the strong from the weak. But the moment the warp gates began to open, Izuku moved, his hand raised. Beelzebuth. A wave of absolute authority burst from Izuku. The void split not into teleportation rifts, but into something far deeper. Kirojiri's warp gates shuddered as a greater force enveloped them. The mist-like villain flinched. What? Kirojiri tried to retract his quirk, but the swirling tendrils of Beelzebuth devoured the portals mid-formation, erasing their connection points entirely. Students and teachers alike stared in shock. Aizawa's eyes widened, though he didn't falter. Kirojiri stumbled back, retreating as his control over the battlefield dissolved in front of him. Impossible. You counter my quirk? Izuku didn't speak, but Bakugo let out a sharp breath, grinning despite himself. Okay, nerd. That was cool. Izumi stepped beside Izuku, hands glowing with magic. Energy. The field's ours now. Let's clean this up. With no teleportation to divide them, the class moved as one. Kirishima charged in a battle with steel arms. Mina followed with a trail of acid. Ida launched like a missile into a charging brute, while Tsu used her tongue to disarm another. Even Kaminari got serious, charging a blast of electricity to protect the support. Students. Uraraka floated rubble and dropped it onto distracted foes, coordinating with Jiru's sound attacks. In the center of it all, Izuku and Izumi danced between attacks there. Synchronization perfect. Izumi's magic shielded their allies, while Izuku's precision strikes dropped opponents in moments. This wasn't a classroom anymore. It was a battlefield Tamura. Shigaraki watched, slack-jawed and twitching, as Kirojiri staggered backward. The dark mist that made up his body was unstable, fragments of his warp gates still flickering and dissolving in the air. He countered it. Kirojiri rasped, his voice laced with disbelief. Shigaraki clenched his gloved hands into fists, his nails scratching furiously at his neck as if trying to ground himself. The student Midoriya, wasn't it? That green-haired brat had just erased the league's tactical advantage with a flick of his hand. That's not fair, Shigaraki muttered. That's not fair. That's not fair. That's not fair. His voice rose in pitch with each repetition. You're not supposed to have Stue like that. This was supposed to be chaos. We split the team, isolate the weak, kill a few extras, and then you show up and just delete my strategy. He stomped forward, eyes wide and wild as he pointed at Izuku from across the ruined plaza. Cheater. Hacks. You're one of those busted in-game raid bosses with broken stats. Are you even in the same game as the rest of us? Izuku didn't respond. He stood firm, golden eyes narrowing as he stepped between Shigaraki and the other students. You said this was a game to you, he said quietly. But to us, this is real, and I'm done letting villains like you write the rules. Shigaraki growled. No, no, no. You don't get to say that while using skills that break the whole system. Where's the balance? Where's the cooldown timer? Izumi raised her hand beside Izuku, generating a magic circle that pulsed with energy. He doesn't need cooldowns. He has me. Ugh, it's like you're some DLC expansion character built to ruin everything fun. Shigaraki shrieked. Headshot blurred into view, striking down another group of approaching villains. You talk too much for someone so outmatched. Mirko launched forward with a growl. Time to shut that mouth. Shigaraki's teeth clenched. Nomu, kill them all. The monstrous creature beside him howled and lunged. But Izuku's feet didn't move. His hand was already glowing. Izumi, he said softly. I'm with you. She whispered as her magic circle expanded. This game wasn't going to go the way Shigaraki wanted, but this game is what she wants. Mirko didn't wait. The moment Shigaraki shouted for the Nomu to attack, the rabbit hero grinned, crouched low, and launched herself like a missile across the battlefield. The concrete beneath her shattered as her legs exploded with kinetic force. You're mine, freak, she snarled, twisting midair into a devastating spinning kick aimed at the creature's face. The blow landed, and for a moment, everyone froze as the Noma's head jerked back, then slowly snapped forward again. Unharmed, Mirko landed in a skid, eyes narrowing. Okay, didn't expect that. The Nomu responded with a roar and swung. Mirko dodged just in time, the air pressure from the blow alone knocking her sideways. She flipped into a roll, then countered with a rapid flurry of kicks, each blow aimed at pressure points. Thing's got no pain response, she muttered, teeth clenched. Another punch came a wide arc, faster than expected. It clipped her shoulder and sent her crashing into the wall. Mirko, Headshot shouted from afar, preparing to assist. The rabbit hero pulled herself from the rubble, coughing, BLD trickling from her temple. No, don't step in. I'm not done yet. She rushed again, this time weaving and striking with more calculated timing. A strike to the knee, a jump OA to its back, a powerful slam to the base of its skull. Still nothing. The Nomu grabbed her mid-air and slammed her into the ground, creating a crater. The battlefield paused. Ryukyu, bruised but standing again, narrowed her eyes. She can't win this alone. That thing's not just strong, it's built for endurance and regeneration, like it's built to throw blow for blow against All Might. Aizawa, still fighting nearby, took a glance. It's genetically engineered. That thing's no normal villain. Mirko groaned as she stood, arm visibly dislocated, but still burning with fire. TC fine. Maybe. I bit away more than I can chew. But I'm not backing down. She dropped into a crouch again, BLD, dripping onto the concrete. The Noma took a step forward, eyes locked. But someone else was already moving. Izuku, with Izumi at his side. He met Mirko's gaze as he passed her. Thanks for softening it up, he said calmly. Mirko blinked, surprised, then gave him a wild grin. Don't lose. Greenie. And with that, the tide began to turn again. The villains paused. The heroes stood, stunned. Even the Nomu halted, its mindless aggression momentarily disrupted. Because, before their eyes, something extraordinary happened. Izumi turned toward Izuku, her expression calm, gentle, even. She reached for him, fingertips glowing with radiant light. "It's time," she whispered, and then her body began to dissolve. Golden particles shimmered into the air, swirling gently like fireflies caught in sunlight. She smiled, eyes never leaving Izuku's. The particles hovered, then rushed forward, merging into his chest in a brilliant cascade of light. A surge of power shook the ground. Izuku's eyes flared open, now glowing with golden radiance. His presence changed, his body humming with immense energy. His aura shimmered gold and black, flickering like wild flame and divine starlight combined. Izumi's voice echoed from within. Him. All restrictions lifted. All skills synchronized. Combat priority unlocked. Beelzebub. The black, void-like spheres appeared and spiraled around his hands. Black flames, dark fire, erupted from his shoulders and forearms, licking the air like shadows come alive. Slime body, his skin gleamed like polished flesh, but the truth was far stranger. Izuku's body, now a golden, high-tier slime construct, could not be wounded like normal. When struck, the skin would ripple, but never bleed. Limbs would regenerate in seconds. Even death by decapitation meant nothing. He was a monster in human form, and yet he was still Izuku Midoriya. Kurogiri staggered back. What is this?" Shigaraki's eye twitched violently. "You're cheating. Again. That's a whole skill tree. You're supposed to be a student." "I'm still learning," Izuku replied quietly, flexing his fingers. The flames danced across his arms. Noma roared. Izuku moved. The Noma's charge was fast, faster than most could track. Its jagged claws lunged straight through Izuku's chest with a sickening shunk, punching clean through flesh, muscle, and bone. Gasps filled the USJ. Aizawa's eyes widened in horror. "Midoriya!" The students froze. Some screamed. Others stood in stunned silence. Even Ed Shot flinched from his high-speed position. Shigaraki laughed. A manic, triumphant screech that echoed across the shattered arena. "Yes. Huh. That's IT. That's what happens when the fake final boss thinks he can cheat. The system. You're dead. Dead." The villains behind him erupted in cheers, roaring their approval, convinced their weapon had ended the golden threat. The Nomus slowly pulled its arm back, black ichor dripping from its claws. And then it happened. Izuku didn't fall, didn't scream, didn't bleed. Instead, where the wound had been, shimmering golden slime flowed like liquid, light bubbling around the gaping hole. The moment the Nomu's claws exited the opening, began to close, flesh reforming, skin knitting seamlessly back together. Within seconds, Izuku stood whole again, clean, untouched, not a scar, not a bruise. His breathing steady, his expression unreadable. Silence fell. Shigaraki's smirk cracked. "W of what?" Kurogiri stepped back instinctively. "That regeneration, it's not normal. It's beyond anything we've seen." "He healed," one villain stammered. But that should have killed him." The students stared in disbelief. Ciro whispered, "He's invincible." Mina gasped. "Did you see his chest? It just glowed and sealed up." Bakugo gritted his teeth, a low growl rising in his throat. "What the hell? Are you Deku?" Aizawa's expression darkened, but not in fear. It was awe, respect. Izuku flexed his arms, rolling his shoulders as if shaking away dust. He looked at the Nomu, voice calm. "You're strong, but you'll need more than brute force." His golden eyes narrowed. "Because I don't die that easily." Izumi's voice echoed faintly through his mind. "I told you, as long as I'm with you, you won't fall. Not now. Not ever." The air grew cold. The moment Izuku raised his hand, the battlefield paused again. Not out of awe, but dread. Golden particles gathered around him, swirling into a vortex behind his back that expanded vast and monstrous. A towering mass of molten gold slime formed behind him, shimmering like a god's judgment. Beelzebub. The Nomu roared and charged once more, but this time there was no clash, no impact. The golden slime surged forward, enveloping the Nomu in an instant. There was no struggle, no sound, only a hiss. The creature that was supposed to kill All Might was gone in seconds. Devoured whole, the mass shrank, flowing back into Izuku's body. He stood alone at the center of the crater, eyes glowing. No words, no fanfare, only silence and fear. The villain stepped back, stunned. He ate it, one of them whispered. Shigaraki shook his head violently, his nails scratching harder at his neck. No, 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 no. That's not possible. That's not how it's supposed to go. But it did. And now Izuku Midoriya stood with the Noma's quirks. And not a scratch on him. Shigaraki couldn't move. The sight of the Noma, the weapon he had trusted, the creature meant to crush All Might being devoured so casually by a golden slime, left him frozen in disbelief. His mind stuttered. He ate it. He actually ate it. He muttered, hands trembling. That's not how this was supposed to go. Kurogiri said nothing. Even the calm, composed Mist had no words for what he had seen. The other villains were backing away, some already turning to flee. The balance of power had tipped so violently, so abruptly, that none of them had the nerve to continue. Izuku stood calmly, no expression on his face, eyes still glowing gold. His energy pulsed like a warning beacon, power incarnate. Shigaraki clutched his head, shaking it, panic overtaking rage. We're not ready. We're not ready for that. He's not a player, he's the final boss. He's the DMN system update patch that broke the whole game. Ryukyu limped over beside Aizawa, whispering, that power. Even in the past, no heroes had regeneration like that. Aizawa stared at Izuku in silence, taking in every detail. He's not just strong, he's evolving. Rapidly. 13 finally spoke, voice shaking. Students are safe. We've won. But what did we just witness? Across the plaza, Izumi's voice echoed gently in Izuku's mind. You've changed. Everything. They won't see you the same now. Izuku looked down at his hands. I know. And somewhere deep in his soul, he knew this was only the beginning. The silence following the villain retreat was deafening. Kurogiri had whisked Shigaraki and the remaining grunts away as panic overtook strategy. Only the dust of battle remained. Students were being gathered, checked for injuries. Medics rushed in. Hero support teams began scanning the area for structural damage, but all eyes kept shifting back to the boy who had ended the battle in seconds. Izuku Midoriya stood in the clearing, quiet, composed, and still glowing faintly. Then, light, a warm, golden shimmer flowed beside him, forming into shape. The same radiant particles that had once merged into his body now twisted in reverse, reassembling. Within seconds, Izumi stood once more. Her expression was soft, gentle. Her hair flowed in golden waves, eyes glowing with action. She stepped beside Izuku, slipping her hand into his with natural ease. You're whole again, Izuku said with a faint smile. So are you, she replied. They needed to see you, and I needed to see you through it. The gathered heroes froze. That's her. She was inside him. Ryukyu muttered. Mirko, battered but standing, gave a low whistle. Now, that's a combo I didn't see coming. 13, adjusting her helmet, asked, a sentient quirk? Manifesting separately? That's unprecedented. Aizawa stepped forward slowly. Midoriya, we'll talk about all of this later. For now, stand down. Let the medics work. Izuku nodded, squeezing Izumi's hand once before releasing it. Yes, sir, he spoke. The students surrounded him in moments. Uraraka hovered behind too wide-eyed. You really did all that? Kirishima asked in awe. He did more than just fight, Yairza said. He changed the entire outcome. Bakugo stood at a distance, arms crossed, lips pressed into a deep scowl. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Everyone saw it now. Izuku Midoriya wasn't just catching up. He'd already surpassed them. And the world had just witnessed the future of hero society in the form of a boy, and his mystical girlfriend who stood by his side. Together, stronger than any one hero alone. I'm glad you're with me, Izumi. Together no one can beat us, he said while Izumi wrapped her arms around Izuku's waist. Together, she whispered. 3 days had passed since the USJ attack. The event that shook the foundation of hero society still echoed across the country. News headlines flashed with images of destruction. Interviews with injured pro-heroes Mirko, Edshot, and Ryukyu, and security reforms debated in real time. But within the fortified walls of UA, a new chapter quietly began. Class 1A had been moved into dorms, a decision fast, tracked by Principal Nizu and approved without delay. The safety of students was paramount. And after seeing what Midoriya could do, many understood that he and his classmates would be targets. The dorm building, spacious and secure, was already prepared. The students spent their first day adjusting to their new rooms, sharing laughter, and learning each other's habits. It was the first time most of them had lived away from home. Izuku and Izumi shared a room on the third floor, a special exception made after Nizu reviewed their case personally. Whatever Izumi was, her bond with Izuku made her indispensable. Inko Midoriya, now oaishly working as the dorm caretaker, stood in the wide kitchen space of the communal dining hall. Clad in an apron and a warm smile, she flipped pancakes and scrambled eggs with practiced ease. Come on, kids. Breakfast is ready. The students poured in, eyes lighting up at the smell of real home cooked food. Kaminari was the first to react. Wait, this is like actual food? Not middle school cafeteria stew, eh? This is heaven. Inko-san, you're amazing. Uraraka beamed. Thank you for cooking, Todoroki said with quiet sincerity. Izuku sat at the table beside Izumi, who was already clinging to his arm, cheerfully helping him cut up a sausage before popping a piece in his mouth. Izumi, he chuckled. I can feed myself. Not when I enjoy doing it more, she replied with a wink. A few of the girls giggled nearby. Inko walked over, placing her hands on her hips with mock seriousness. Izumi, don't spoil him too much or he'll never learn. Too late. Izumi smirked. The warmth in the air was undeniable. For the first time in a long while, Class 1A felt safe. Laughter, conversation, and sizzling pans filled the dorm. The storm had passed, until another bruise over as the laughter and breakfast chatter slowly gave way to idle conversation and the routine of a calm morning. For Izuku Midoriya, however, his mind was anything but idle. He sat quietly with Izumi nestled beside him, her head on his shoulder as she toyed with the hem of his shirt. His eyes, however, scanned the room with silent precision. Observation was a habit, a part of me that never really turned away. Izuku thought. He looked to Kirishima, laughing loudly with Kaminari and Siro over something undoubtedly dumb but joyful. The embodiment of brotherly energy and easy trust. Reliable, honest, a loyal fighter. Ida sat with Yaoruza, the two engaged in some discussion over their class notes, even over breakfast. Ever the leaders. Sharp, structured, precise. His flaw is rigidity. Todoroki sat a table away, quietly finishing his food with the calm detachment of a chess MSTR. Occasionally, he glanced toward the window. Strong, but laxful to use a part as quirk. Uraraka and Azui sat across from Jairu, chatting. Casually, Uraraka was bright and open. Azui was clear-minded and blunt, and Jairu was cool and observant. Uraraka, from what I gathered, is poor. A good reason for villains to hire her, but I'm not judging. Azui's instincts are sharper than she lets on. Jairu reads people. All good except for Uraraka, but still. But then his eyes landed on someone else. Yuga Aoyama. He sat away to the side, smiling, but not at anyone. His gaze occasionally flicked toward Izuku and quickly away. He fiddled with his belt too often, too composed, too aware. That smile is a mask, quirk too. Unstable to be born with it, too sheltered. Izuku's brows knit slightly, a small twinge in his gut. Not from paranoia, but pattern. No one's that flamboyant without purpose. Aoyama's eyes flicked toward him again, and this time their gazes met. Izuku didn't blink. Aoyama held the stare for a second too long, then looked away. Izuku turned to his plate, chewed slowly, thoughtfully. There's something there, he noted mentally. I don't know what yet, but I'll find it. Beside him, Izumi blinked and tilted her head. Your mind's ticking, darling, just keeping track. Izuku murmured. He smiled gently, but his eyes stayed sharp. Uraraka's money problem is a good leverage for villains, but she's too genuine to be acting. But you, on the other hand, Aoyama. He glanced at Aoyama again. You're too fake. I know genuine emotion when I see one, and not an ounce of it in your face. He smiled at Aoyama, even giving him a thumbs up as if asking if the food is good, and Aoyama returned the gesture. I'm keeping vigilance around you. In the quiet of UA's administration wing, Principal Nizu sat at the head of a long conference table. His tiny paws were neatly folded, and a cup of tea steamed quietly beside him. His expression, as always, was unreadable somewhere between genius and mischievous. The room was filled with UA's faculty. Aizawa sat beside Midnight, arms crossed and eyes half lidded in their usual tired stare. Cementos and Present Mike sat nearby, while Vlad King leaned forward, hands clasped before him. Power Loader, Hound Dog, and a few instructors from the general and support departments were present too. It was rare for so many departments to gather like this outside of the semester meetings. Nizu cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming on short notice. The aftermath of the USJ incident has forced us to reevaluate several plans moving forward, particularly our next major event. The murmuring around the table ceased. Aizawa gave a slow nod. You mean the sports festival? Indeed. Nizu sipped his tea. After such a significant breach, it would be tone-deaf to hold a glorified spectacle while our students are still healing physically and mentally. Midnight raised an eyebrow. But the sports festival isn't just for fun. It's vital for connecting students to agencies. For exposure. Correct. Nizu agreed, which is why I'm not canceling it. I'm evolving it. He tapped a button on the table. A holographic projection rose above them, a dynamic 3D layout of a city-like training field. I propose the UA Battle Royale Tournament, a complete restructuring of the usual showcase, built not only for spectacle, but for development, strategy, and real-world application. The murmurs returned. Vlad King narrowed his eyes. Battle Royale? That sounds intense. It is, Nizu said, his voice still cheerful. But it's also safe, controlled, heavily supervised. 3 leagues, each designed to challenge students in different ways. He clicked the remote again, cycling through the diagrams. League 1, a wide-field, non-lethal battle royale. Open to all. First-year students across hero, support, business, and general studies. Equipped with sensor, gear, and knockout tags. The goal? Survive and eliminate. Students will be forced to adapt to chaos, analyze their opponents, and use their quirks with restraint. Power Loader scratched his head. Even support and business students? Absolutely. With modifications, Nizu assured. Support students can bring their own inventions. Non-combatant students will be granted tools for defense, and all engagement rules will be clearly outlined. That's ambitious, Cementos admitted. League 2, Nizu continued, switching slides again, will take the top 50 qualifiers and split them into 4v4 teams. These teams will be randomized across courses. Support and business students will now need to work with hero students. It will test coordination, leadership, and creativity. President Mike leaned in, forcing cooperation between departments. That's genius. Nizu grinned. And finally, League 3, the solo bracket. The top 16 from the 4v4 stage will face OA in one-on-one duels. No teams, no gimmicks, just a stage, 2 fighters, and the watchful eyes of every major hero agency in the nation. Hound Dog snorted. High risk, high visibility. That'll put the highlights on them. Aizawa finally spoke again. Will there be injury protocols? Medical oversight? Of course. Recovery Girl will be present along with rotating Hero SDA. Students can yield at any time, and will monitor quirks for excessive use. Vlad King looked impressed. This might actually teach them more than the sports festival ever could. It'll force them to adapt, Midnight added. Even support kids will have to think on their feet. Nizu closed the projection. I want this to be the new standard. We must cultivate adaptable heroes, resilient thinkers, and more than that, we need to show the public that UA is prepared, that our students are stronger, more united, and more capable than ever. A heavy silence fell over the room. Then Aizawa nodded. I'm in. Let's do it. One by one, the faculty members agreed. Nizu smiled, his little paws tapping together. Then we begin preparations. Immediately, 1 month from now, the UA Battle Royale tournament will begin. The sun rose higher through the windows, bathing the room in gold. And the next challenge for UA's brightest was set in motion. The common room of the 1A dorm was buzzing with the usual end-of-day chatter. Some students were lounging on the couches, others gathered around card games or phones. The hum of daily life after training kept spirits relatively high. That was until Aizawa walked in. The moment their homeroom teacher entered, the room straightened out with practiced reflex. Conversation stopped, a few students stood up, and all eyes went to the man in the capture scarf. Sit, Aizawa said, voice low and Grua as always. The class obeyed, scattering in his seats across the couches and floor. I have an announcement. Important one. He pulled out a small data tablet and tapped it on. Given the aftermath of the USJ incident, the school has decided to cancel the traditional sports festival. A few audible gasps echoed. Wait, what? Kaminari exclaimed. But that's like where agencies scout us, right? There. Replacing it with something else, Aizawa continued. Something more suited to the times. You'll have 1 month of intensive training, after which you'll compete in the UA Battle Royale tournament. Silence. Then wait. Kaminari stood up, eyes wide with childish glee. Did you say Battle Royale? Like the games? Are we getting weapons? Like actual guns? Because I've been practicing my loadout since last dash. No, Kaminari, Aizawa said without missing a beat. No guns. Laughter broke out across the room. A Battle Royale sounds intense, Kirishima said, cracking his knuckles. Man, I'm getting pumped already. 4 stages, 3 leagues, Aizawa clarified. The first is an all-out battlefield with students from every department. Hero, support, business, general. Everyone is in. Non-lethal, sensor-equipped. Eliminate or survive. Yayarosa blinked. Even business students? Yes, Aizawa replied. Then, the top 54 qualify for the second stage. 4 versus 4 team battles assigned at random. The final stage is a one-on-one bracket. Izuku's eyes narrowed in quiet excitement. 3 phases. Teamwork, strategy, solo ability. So you raised a hand. Won't this be harder than the festival? Much, Aizawa said. Which is the point. The world is watching. Be ready. As the news sank in, anticipation buzzed in the air. The tournament was coming. The common room of Class 1, as dorm, was a blissful scene of relaxation. Outside, clouds drifted lazily across the sky. Inside, students sprawled across couches, beanbags, and rugs, content in their peaceful lull between training sessions. Izuku sat comfortably in the center couch, his legs stretched out and a blanket thrown over them. Izumi was curled up on his lap once again, head resting against his chest, while her fingers traced idle patterns along the fabric of his hoodie. Neither spoke, they didn't need to. The TV played softly in front of them, showing a light-hearted variety show that occasionally drew chuckles from around the room. Kirishima sat on the floor, leaning back against the couch, eyes half-lidded. Ciro and Mina were playing a slow card game, while Gyro hummed along to the background music, earbuds only half in. Kaminari groaned and rolled onto his back, staring dramatically at the ceiling. "Mama Inku," he called toward the kitchen with theatrical flair. "Please, we hungry ai. We crave your love and your cooking. I speak for the starving children of Class 1A. Inko's warm laugh floated in from the kitchen. "I just baked some melonpan, Denki. I'll bring it out in a minute." Kaminari lit up. "Best dorm, Mom, ever." Then, unexpectedly, another voice followed. "Mom," Todoroki said calmly without looking up from his book. "If it's not too much trouble, could I have cold soba?" Silence. Heads turned. Todoroki blinked, slowly lifting his eyes from the page as realization dawned. Kaminari gasped with exaggerated joy. "You called her Mom? Oh my God, I'm not her only adopted son." "Now," Todoroki blinked again. "I meant it respectfully. She's kind. Nope. No takebacks. Todoroki, you're one of us now." Mina cackled. Izuku chuckled softly as Izumi giggled against him. "She's already won everyone over." "Of course she has," Izumi said, eyes still closed. "She raised you." Just then, Inko appeared with a tray of freshly baked melonpan and tea, placing it on the table. She smiled kindly at everyone. "Cold soba's coming up, Shoto," she said gently as if she'd been waiting to be asked. Todoroki bowed his head. "Thank you, Mom." The warmth that filled the room was undeniable. And in that small, shared moment between the teasing, the snacks, and the comfort, it was clear Class 1A had found more than just friends. They had found family. The mood in the common room had been light, warm, and filled with the scent of melonpan and tea. Inko's snacks had disappeared quickly, and the students of Class 1A laughed, chatted, and bonded like a true family. Even the normally stoic Todoroki had accepted seconds of soba with quiet gratitude. Izuku and Izumi remained cuddled on the couch, Izumi resting in his lap as he reached for another sweet. Around them, students had found their comfort zones, Kaminari teasing, Mina playfully throwing crumbs, and Sato discussing baking tips with Inko. Then, Ida's phone rang. He excused himself from the circle politely, stepping toward the hallway just outside the common room. It was quiet for a few moments, until it wasn't. The silence that followed the end of the call was heavier than any villain attack. Ida re-entered the room slowly, his hands trembling, face pale, eyes wide and wet. Every step forward looked like it took immense effort. "Ida-kun," Yaoyorozu asked softly. Everyone turned. Ida's lips parted, but for a moment, no words came out. Then he choked out a breath and fell to his knees. "My brother, Tensei." Izuku stood immediately. "Ow. Izuku, warn me next time." Izumi protested. She fell on the wood floor the moment Izuku stood. She stood up and looked at Ida with concern, mirroring Izuku's classmates. "He's alive," Ida said shakily, as if trying to hold himself together. "But he was attacked. The hero killer. Stain. He left him paralyzed. His spine is... He can't ever return to the field. He can never be a hero again." Gasps rippled across the room. No one moved. Then Uraraka rushed forward, kneeling beside him. Kirishima followed. Izuku stepped closer and knelt down as well, placing a hand on Ida's shoulder. "We're here, Ida. You're not alone. I wanted to be like him. He's my hero. My brother." Ida's voice cracked, and tears spilled down his cheeks. "He was everything I looked up to. And now, then, carry his legacy," Izuku said firmly. "For him, let's carry it with you." Todoroki stepped forward, his expression grim. "We'll get stronger. Together. For all the people who can't fight anymore." Before anyone else could speak, Inko appeared quietly behind them. She approached Ida with gentle steps, her expression full of maternal warmth. Without a word, she knelt down and embraced him, wrapping him in the kind of hug only a mother could owe her. Ida froze, then broke completely, burying his face in her shoulder as fresh sobs racked his frame. "You're not alone, Tenya," Inko whispered. "You're loved here. Lean on us." Izuku looked at his classmate with firm eyes, placing both hands on Ida's shoulders. His voice was steady, strong. "The hardest choices require the strongest wills. So, Ida, will you let the vengeance control you, Izuku, and make sure?" Ida looked at him. "Or hope to shape you. Be the hero you and your brother dreamed of. Be ingenium and carry on his hard work." Everyone around him nodded in silent support. Ida wept into his hands, but he wasn't alone. He was surrounded by the arms, hands, and hearts of friends who would never let him fall. In that moment, Class 1A stopped being just classmates. They became pillars for one another. And for Ida, the path of a hero just took a new form shaped, not by vengeance, but by unity. As the emotional storm from Ida's announcement began to settle and his classmates slowly gathered their strength around him, another student quietly slipped away from the warmth and unity in the common room. Yuga Aoyama. No one noticed the glimmer that disappeared behind the stairwell. He stood in the quiet corner, away from the comforting lights, his arms wrapped tightly around himself. His usual sparkling expression had dulled, his confident smirk wiped away. There were no jokes or dramatic poses here. Just a boy, staring at the floor, haunted. He slid down against the wall until he was sitting, hugging his knees. "Why am I doing this?" The words left his mouth in a whisper, too soft for anyone to hear but himself. He had watched Ida cry, watched Inko hug him, watched Izuku speak words that could only come from someone who knew pain and still chose hope. And all Aoyama could feel was guilt. He remembered his parents' pleading faces, the tears, the fear, the deal made, in desperation. And the man, no, the monster who gave him a quirk, a gift wrapped in chains. You must watch, report, play the part, protect your parents. Do as I say, or they sue you. Aoyama's eyes brimmed with tears. "I don't want to be the villain." His chest ached. He clutched it, biting back a sob. "I want to be like them, like Izuku, like Tenya, like the others who fight not because they have to, but because they believe." For the first time since he stepped foot in UA, Aoyama felt the crushing weight of the lie he carried. And for the first time, he truly wanted to be free of it. Someone was watching, taking every word of what Aoyama said. Checkmate. As he went back to the common room with his classmates, the days at UA continued to pass, with a strange harmony, following the emotional upheaval of Ida's heartbreaking news and Aoyama's secret breakdown in solitude. Things on the surface had returned to normal, or at least that's what it seemed like. Class 1A had adapted well to dorm life, and routines had quickly formed. Mornings were filled with quick breakfasts, mid-mornings with training or lectures, and evenings spent lounging together in the common room or buried in homework. Students joked, laughed, and built camaraderie that was slowly maturing into the unbreakable bond of a team. Izuku Midoriya remained ever at the center, not by dimps, but by sheer gravity of personality. He helped with study sessions, assisted Siro in working on new grappling techniques, and gave Tokoyami feedback on managing Dark Shadow's temperament. There wasn't a student in 1A who didn't, in some way, feel his support. And to Aoyama, it was a comfort and a curse. He watched Izuku carefully. Every glance, every word, every expression. He knows. He has to know. But Izuku gave him nothing. Midoriya, Aoyama called one afternoon after class, as the two walked together back toward the dorms. "I simply must ask, your opinion. Do you think I should change the color of my belt buckle? Silver feels too predictable lately." Izuku blinked, smiling with a shrug. "I think silver suits your style perfectly, Aoyama, but maybe add a second accent buckle? Something like lavender or soft blue to add contrast." Aoyama tilted his head thoughtfully. I must admit, that's not a bad idea. You have such a good eye on Ami. I just try to look at the whole picture, Izuku said lightly, chuckling. You always go all out with your fashion. It's inspiring. Aoyama smiled. It was genuine. Izuku's kindness, his warmth, it hadn't faded. It hadn't shifted. And yet, there were times, quiet moments like when they passed each other in the hall, or when Izuku met his eyes. During training exercises when Aoyama felt something deeper behind the smile. Not anger, not even suspicion, awareness, but it was never voiced. During lunch one day, Aoyama joined Izuku at the far table. You're always studying battle strategies, even during your break? You'll tire yourself out, mon heroes. Izuku looked up, surprised, and chuckled. Can't help it. Thinking about how to help my classmates avoid injuries makes the food taste better. Aoyama hesitated. You care too much, you know. That can be dangerous. Maybe, Izuku said softly, but I'd rather care too much than not enough. Again, nothing strange, nothing accusatory. Aoyama sipped his tea, nodding slowly. The dread began to slip away again. Maybe he doesn't. No, maybe I'm still safe. That night, Aoyama stared at the ceiling from his dorm bed. The room was quiet, lit only by the gentle pulse of his nightlight. But his mind was anything but calm. He thought back to the laughter in the common room, the unity around Ida, the strength that Izuku carried so effortlessly. I want to be like him. Across the hall, Izuku sat at his desk, flipping through one of his notebooks. His expression was calm, his movements focused. But when he paused and looked toward the hallway, toward Aoyama's door, his eyes narrowed briefly. Izumi appeared behind him, arms wrapping around his shoulders. You're not going to say anything? She asked softly. Not yet. Izuku murmured. He's scared, conflicted. If I push him now, he might break or worse run. But you're watching. He nodded. Always. The mask stayed in place. Brilliant, kind, flawless. Aoyama never noticed it wasn't just friendly eyes watching him. It was the vigilance of someone who understood pain, who understood betrayal, who chose patience over punishment. Because when the truth did come to light, Izuku wanted to meet him with open hands, not closed fists. And Aoyama? He still slept believing the mask was real. But the time for truth would come, and Izuku Midoriya would be ready. The morning sun poured through the training field windows, casting golden light across Class 1A as they wrapped up. Another intense quirk assessment session. The UA faculty had upped their expectations, demanding better control, creativity, and coordination from every student. Izuku, standing by the sidelines after his own round, observed his classmates with a critical but supportive gaze. Bakugo, with sweat dripping from his brow, had just finished an explosive drill that left scorch marks on the walls. Too much recoil, Izuku noted aloud, arms crossed. If you adjusted the angle of your blast by 12-degree dash, shut up, Deku, Bakugo snapped, spinning toward him. The usual fire burned in his eyes, but something faltered when he saw Izuku's calm face. There was no mockery in Izuku's tone, only insight. You'll get more distance and speed if you do, Izuku added, softer this time, and it'll be easier on your shoulder. Bakugo growled, glared, and then quietly adjusted his stance. The next explosion was sharper, cleaner, more ancient. He didn't say anything afterward, but Izuku caught the nod. Nearby, Momo had been experimenting with creating a complex metal baton. She looked frustrated. If I may, Izuku approached her gently, holding his hand out toward the baton. Your creations are perfect, but if someone closes in, it might be difficult to defend yourself. Have you considered martial arts? Just basics for defense. It would really round out your abilities. Momo blinked, surprised. You think so? You already have the tools, Izuku said with a smile. Now imagine pairing that with precise counters and footwork. You'd be almost untouchable. She smiled genuinely. That's actually brilliant. Thank you, Midoriya. I'll ask Aizawa for a training schedule. A loud zap suddenly echoed nearby. Kaminari stood with smoke rising from his head, looking woozy. Ow, not again. Izuku walked over, sighing with amusement. He lightly smacked Kaminari's forehead. How many times do I have to tell you? Moderate discharge, then redirect. You're overloading. Kaminari grinned, still buzzing. You like my big bro, man? I swear, next time I fry myself, I'll just come find you. Please don't make that a habit. Izuku chuckled. As the day moved on, the interactions between Izuku and his classmates left a clear impression. They trusted him, even Bakugo, in his own way. It wasn't just strength that made Izuku a pillar among them. It was his insight, patience, and belief that they could all grow together. Izumi stood away to the side, arms crossed, watching the scene unfold. Her eyes weren't scanning for danger, they were fixed on one pink-skinned girl, with golden eyes and a furrowed brow. Mina Ashido stood at a sparring dummy station, barely reacting to its movements. Her posture was sluggish, and she let out a deep sigh every few seconds. Izumi blinked, tilted her head, then walked over. Mina, she called softly, just loud, enough to be heard over the whirring gears of the training bot. Mina looked up quickly, startled. Izumi. Hey, what's up? Izumi raised a brow. I was going to ask you the same thing. You've been looking like you lost a dance battle and your favorite milkshake flavor all at once. Mina groaned and slumped against the frame of the training gear. It's dumb. Really dumb. If it was dumb, it wouldn't be distracting you this much. Spill it. Izumi softly spoke, already having some idea as to what kept Mina so troubled. Mina hesitated, chewing on her lip before sighing. Again, it's Kirishima. I don't know. I've been feeling weird around him lately. Like, when he smiles, my brain kind of melts and I start thinking about the way he dodges in sparring, or how he encourages others, and then I mess up whatever I'm doing. Izumi smirked knowingly. Oh no, sounds like a textbook case of crush syndrome. Mina blushed furiously. Ugh, don't say it like that. Mina, relax. You're not the first person in our class to have feelings for someone. And trust me, you're definitely not the last. Izumi added. Mina covered her face. I don't know what to do. I don't want to make it awkward. What if I ruin the friendship or mess up the team dynamics? Izumi gently nudged her shoulder. Then don't think of it as some big romantic reveal. Just be you. Keep talking to him. Spend time with him. Maybe ask him to spar with you. More. See how he reacts. You think he'll notice? Mina almost stuttered out. Oh, please, Izumi laughed. The guy's always glancing over when you land a solid hit or take charge in drills. I've noticed. Trust me, you're not as subtle as you think. Mina blinked. Wait, he does. Uh-huh. And I think he's just as clueless about his own feelings as you are about yours. So maybe it's time someone made a move. Doesn't have to be huge, just a small nudge. Mina stood up, straighter, energy returning to her eyes. Okay, maybe I will. Atta girl. Izumi grinned. Now get back in there and show that dummy who's boss. And maybe throw a wink Kiri's way. While you're at it. Mina giggled, nodded, and ran back to her station with renewed determination. Izumi smiled as she watched her go. One ship at a time, she murmured, hands on her hips, before returning to Izuku's side to whisper something that made him blush. You heard that right, darling? You know what to do. Izuku nodded with a smile. Training resumed, but the air felt a little lighter, a little more hopeful. A full week had passed since Class 1A began. Their intensive daily training. The once scattered techniques and unrefined quirks now showed hints of strategy, control, and synchronization. Under the watchful eye of Aizawa and the combined guidance of Izuku and Izumi, the class had grown sharper, more ancient, more like heroes. Again, watch your follow-through, Ciro. Izuku called out from the observation deck. Got it, Midoriya, Ciro replied, adjusting his tape trajectory and nailing the moving target this time. Down on the field, Aizawa stood with arms crossed, nodding slightly. Their progress is better than expected. Beside him, Izumi had a notepad in hand, jotting down points. They're responding not just to correction, but to each other. It's like they're slowly learning how to function as a unit. That's the point, Aizawa muttered. If they can function as a team. Now, they'll survive what's coming. Izuku walked along the track lines, making his way toward Ida and Ojiro, who were reviewing their movements from a previous match. Ida, Ojiro, he began. Your coordination is improving. But Ojiro, try pivoting left instead of stepping back when Ida charges. You'll cut the enemy's escape path instead of giving them space. Understood. Midoriya, Ojiro replied. Thanks for the tip. Meanwhile, Izumi stood by a sparring ring where Momo Yaoyorozu practiced counter-disarming. You're generating perfect shields, Momo, Izumi said gently, but you hesitate when your opponent breaks the rhythm. Adapt more. React less. Momo wiped sweat from her brow. I see. Thank you, Izumi. Even Bakugo, who rarely took advice, grunted when Izuku urged minor tweaks about his explosion angles for quicker aerial recovery. Kaminari joked about how Midoriya was now the court coach, while Tsu riveted a quiet agreement. During the cool-down, the class gathered in a wide circle on the grass. I'll admit it, Kirishima said, grinning. I didn't think I'd like being trained by classmates. But you two make it easy. It's because we're not training you to be like us, Izuku replied. We're helping you be better versions of yourselves. Izumi added. And it's nice seeing how far you've all come. You're not just students anymore, you're teammates. Future pros. The students nodded, some smiling to themselves, others exchanging high fives. From afar, Aizawa watched in silence, then finally closed his eyes. They'll be ready, he said. For now, Class 1, they had one thing clear: they were no longer just rookies. After a while, the training had wrapped up for the day, and the sun was beginning to dip into the horizon, casting warm hues across the now quiet UA grounds. Most of the students had returned to the dorms, exhausted yet satisfied with the progress they'd made. Izuku stood by the track, going over his notes when the soft sound of approaching footsteps made him look up. Principal Nizu stood there, a small, polite smile on his face, and, in his paws, a thick envelope. Midoriya, Nizu greeted. Principal Nizu, I didn't realize you were here, Izuku said with a slight bow. Nizu handed him the envelope. Here's your salary. For your contributions. Izuku blinked. Salary? What salary? I D-dash. Nizu was already walking away, waving one paw behind him. You're technically acting as a support trainer. Fair compensation is in order. Tata. Still confused, Izuku opened the envelope and nearly dropped it. It was Stued with crisp bills. He gawked. This is an actual salary. You deserve it, Midoriya, Aizawa said as he walked up beside him, hands Stued in his pockets. You're not just training. Alongside them, you're teaching, guiding. That insight you've been giving, it's helped push everyone forward, including me. Izuku looked down at the envelope again. The weight of it wasn't just monetary, it was recognition, acceptance, responsibility. Thank you, Sensei, Izuku said quietly. Izumi appeared moments later, linking her arm with his. What's that, darling? Apparently, I'm on UA's payroll now, Izuku muttered, still stunned. Izumi grinned. We should celebrate. Ice cream's on you tonight. He chuckled. Guess it is. As the three of them walked back toward the dorms, the horizon burned orange and gold. Behind them, the training grounds lay still, but they carried the footprints of Aort, growth, and now a little well-earned reward. A week passed in the blink of an eye, filled with rigorous drills, strategy, simulations, and daily evaluations. Under Aizawa's precise curriculum and the ever-watchful guidance of Izuku and Izumi Class 1A was evolving at an impressive pace. During the early hours of the 8th day, Izuku stood at the field's edge with Izumi at his side, the two of them flipping through evaluation sheets and taking notes. Jiraiya's finesse is getting more refined, Izumi pointed out, tapping her finger against the clipboard. And Shoji's coordination with range quirks has improved. He's learning how to shield others better, Izuku replied. Thoughtfully, Aizawa approached them with a mug of koei in hand. Your insights are on point. You've both raised the class's potential by several notches. We're just doing what we can. Izuku said. They're the ones putting in the work. Across the field, Kaminari sprinted through an obstacle course, sweat pouring down his face, but is ready to use his quirk. Focus. Redirect. Then fire. Don't just surge blindly. Izuku called sternly. Kaminari tripped, rolled, then got up and tried again, zapping a training bot with a control blast. Better. Izuku said, his voice is firm, but encouraging. Little bro, you've got the power, but power without aim is just noise. Kaminari gave a tired thumbs up. Why yes, big bro. Izumi giggled beside him. You're really taking this. Older brother role seriously. He asked for it. Now he's got to live with it. Izuku muttered with a small smile. Suddenly, from a few feet away, Minetta's voice rang out. Whoa, did you guys see Yaoyorozu today? Total knock-a-dash smack. A training clipboard landed squarely on Minetta's head. Ow. Hey. Izuku glared down at him. We train here. We grow here. We don't reduce our classmates to comments about their looks. Minetta shrank back. Sorry. Say it like you mean it. Then do better. Or go back inside. Minetta quickly nodded. Sorry, really. Won't happen. Again. Aizawa, who had been observing the exchange, gave Izuku a rare approving glance. As the day wound down and the sun dipped lower, Izuku and Izumi sat with Aizawa, finalizing notes on everyone's performance. Class 1A had come a long way, and with this level of DSBLN and care, they'd go even further. OA to the side, slightly separated from the groups, Aoyama Yuga sat on a bench beneath the shade of a tree. His usual flamboyant demeanor was gone, no sparkle in his smile, no confident pose. Instead, he watched his classmates through troubled eyes. He saw Kirishima helping Mina with some cool-down stretches, her laughter echoing across the field. He saw Todoroki and Yaoyorozu quietly discussing something in their notebooks. He saw Ida organizing stray cones and training dummies, the model of responsibility. He saw Kaminari clumsily tripping over his own towel while Izuku helped him up with a chuckle, Izumi watching fondly from beside them. And he felt empty. Aoyama clutched his stomach, the gnawing guilt sinking deeper. These were his friends, his classmates, his teammates, and yet they don't. No. He bit his lip and glanced down at his belt, the support gear that helped control his navel laser, a reminder of his secret, a reminder of the cost. How much longer can I pretend? How much longer until they find out? His mind played out nightmares, Izuku's trusting smile vanishing into cold disappointment, Kaminari's brotherly goofiness turning to a look of betrayed, Momo's soft-spoken support twisting into anger, Izumi's warm presence retracting into rejection. All because I'm a pawn, a coward. He wrapped his arms around himself, shivering despite the heat. From afar, Izuku glanced toward the bench. His expression didn't change, but his gaze lingered, watching. Aoyama quickly looked away. He couldn't bear to know if Izuku suspected something, if he already knew. The guilt stayed with him, gnawing deeper as the laughter of his classmates danced in the air. And for now, Aoyama remained in the shadows of that setting sun, smiling when they looked and crumbling when they didn't. At the distance, Izuku narrowed his eyes. So what's your plan? Aoyama, time's ticking. His sincere smile turned cold and calculating. Days later, the common room of Heights Alliance was filled with warmth and cheer. The soft hum of a romantic playlist played from Gyro's speaker. Snacks were scattered across the tables, and laughter bounced away the walls. The class had gathered to celebrate something special. Kirishima, red-faced but beaming, stood with Mina beside him, her arm looped around his. Yeah, we're officially dating now, he announced with a proud grin. Cheers! Erupted. Instantly. Mina giggled as Tsuyu hugged her from behind, and Kaminari playfully ruwaled. Kirishima's hair. Took you long enough. I'll let everyone pua for my vape. Siro shouted. Give me your vape, young man. Inko yelled from the kitchen. While everyone laughed at Ciro, he got caught. Again. Called it. Uraraka said with a wink. Izuku stepped forward and gave them both a light pat on the shoulders. I'm proud of you guys. Seriously, you make a great team. Izumi leaned in beside him, giving a knowing smile. Love really does bloom in battlefields. The class shared a laugh. It was another perfect moment, another bright memory in the growing bond day. All shared, but not everyone was laughing. Aoyama sat quietly near the edge of the couch, a smile forced on his face. No one noticed the tightness in his shoulders, the way his fingers dug into his pants, or how his eyes shimmered with barely contained emotion. They're happy. They're alive. They're whole. He looked around, heart pounding. Kaminari tossing popcorn at Ciro. Ida helping Todoroki clean up a spill. Yayorozu discussing dessert ideas with Jairu and Toru. Izuku seated with his usual calm strength. Izumi draped casually against him, sharing quiet words. They almost died. Because of me. The USJ incident replayed in his mind. The chaos, the fear, the BLD, the Nomu. He swallowed hard, a lump growing in his throat. If the pros and Midoriya hadn't been there, he thought they'd be gone. They'd be gone and it would be my fault. He excused himself quietly, slipping away from the light and warmth of the common room. No one noticed. He went into the hallway, pressing his back to the cold wall, gripping his chest. The guilt wasn't fading. It was growing. How can I keep smiling when I'm the reason they were almost destroyed? His knees shook. How much longer can I pretend before I break? Slowly, Aoyama Yuga is breaking and shards after shards is showing. Izuku always has his eyes on him while also treating his classmates with kindness. The evening, air was cool as a soft breeze passed through the open hallway window of Heights Alliance. Most students were winding down from the day's training, retreating to their rooms or finishing homework in the common area. Izuku wandered through the hallway, a stack of notes in hand, planning his next training session with Izumi. As he turned a corner near the back stairwell, paused. A soft, Mualed sobbing reached his ears. He stepped closer, peeking just past the stair rail. There, sitting with her back against the wall and her knees pulled to her chest, was Ochako. Uraraka. Her face was hidden, her shoulders trembling as she tried to keep quiet. I can do it. I can survive, she whispered to herself, voice cracking. Just how to make it stretch a little. Longer. Food's not that expensive. Maybe I can skip recess tomorrow. Just water. She pulled her wallet out, opening it with shaking hands. Inside were a few crumpled bills and some coins. Her lips quivered as she tried to steady her breathing. Izuku stood frozen for a moment, a pang of guilt twisting in his chest. He had suspected her once, considered her a possible traitor. But now, seeing this raw moment, he knew he was wrong. Quietly, he stepped forward and sat beside her, gently placing a hand on her head. You don't have to do this alone, Uraraka, he said. Softly. She flinched, surprised, and quickly wiped her eyes. And Midoriya. I didn't know. Anyone want dash. It's okay, he interrupted. You don't have to explain. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope the one Nizu had given him with his first salary. Without a word, he tucked a few neatly folded bills inside and placed it gently in her lap. Midoriya, she softly touched the bills. Consider a thank you, he smiled faintly, for always trying your best, for fighting beside us. She stared at him, stunned, her tears falling freely now, but not from sorrow. I'll pay you back. Every cent, she whispered. You don't have to, he said. But if you want to do it by taking care of yourself, okay. In that quiet stairwell, without any spotlight or recognition, a silent kindness was shared. And for Ochako, it was enough to breathe a little easier. The next day, the midday sun poured through the tall cafeteria windows, bathing the room in soft, golden light. Students laughed and chattered over trays of food, the air warm with energy, and life. Izuku stepped into the cafeteria, tray in hand, eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on a familiar figure. There, seated with Yu and Juru, was Ochako Uraraka smiling. Her tray was full, stacked with a hearty meal prepared by Lunch Rush. Rice, steamed vegetables, a pork cutlet, and a small bowl of miso soup. She chatted between bites, laughing at something. Tsuyu had said. Izuku paused a few feet away, watching quietly. Her eyes had a brightness they hadn't held just days ago. The tension in her shoulders was gone, replaced by ease. She laughed, freely, not forced, and the pink in her cheeks wasn't from holding back tears. He smiled too, himself, heart lightening just a little. Izumi appeared beside him, nudging his side. That look suits her, she said gently. Yeah, Izuku replied. I'm glad you did what you did. I'm glad she's eating well, darling. They moved to their table as the cafeteria continued buzzing with the casual joy of young heroes at peace. For now, things were calm. And for Izuku, seeing that small smile over lunch was worth everything. Meanwhile, Aoyama Yuga sat in silence. His tray was untouched, his fork resting idly against his food. Across the table, he watched as Uraraka cheerfully recounted a story to Yu and Jairu, her eyes gleaming with light and her cheeks full of warmth. She was happy. Aoyama smiled faintly. It looked convincing, maybe even appealing. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. He glanced down at his food, then slowly around. The cafeteria. Izuku and Izumi were seated together, smiling over something in a notebook. Kaminari was trying and failing to balance a spoon on his nose, much to Mina's amusement. Todoroki sat calmly beside Ida, quietly enjoying cold soba. Shiro and Kirishima were laughing over some inside joke. And Ochako, sweet, kind Ochako, was airing him another piece of meat from her plate. You barely touched your food, Aoyama-kun. Want some mange? aired with a warm grin. He blinked. Ah, no. Merci, Uraraka-san. I am simply admiring the joy around me. She giggled. Well, join in when you're ready. We're all friends here, right? Friends. Aoyama's chest ached. They're so kind, so open, even to someone like me. He nodded politely and turned back to his tray. His hand trembled slightly as he picked up his fork. Inside, he was screaming. How long can I smile like this? How long until they see through me? He looked once more at Ochako's radiant face, her earlier sadness now gone. She had found hope. She had found support. And Aoyama was still buried in guilt. I don't deserve any of this. He smiled again. A appealing, brilliant, breaking smile, a smile Izuku sees through every single time. He sat there with Izuku, but his eyes lingered to Aoyama. How long till you break, Aoyama? How long can you be a pawn in someone's game? Izuku sighed and accepted Izumi's approach of putting a spoonful of food in his mouth. That evening, the common room was dimly lit, most students lounging in their pajamas after dinner. Laughter still drifted from the television, where Kaminari and Shiro were watching a comedy skit, while others relaxed with games or study sessions. The soft click of the lounge door opening silenced the room. Aizawa stepped in, still in his black capture weapon scarf, hair slightly disheveled as always. He looked at them all with his usual sleepy glare. Listen up. We got a schedule update. Tomorrow, Class 1A and Class 1B will be holding a joint training session. Immediately, murmurs erupted. With 1B, Kaminari blinked. Wait, are we doing like a test or a battle thing? Sounds like another sparring match, but with 1B instead of just us. Jairu said, sitting up. Tsh, Bakugo Soed. Can't wait to crush them. Don't underestimate them, Todoroki added calmly. We've been observing their training sessions from the field rotations. They're not pushovers. Momo raised her hand politely. Will this be similar to our previous capture drills? Aizawa shook his head. Not quite. This time, each class will select 4 representatives. The selection will be random to avoid bias. Those four will engage in one-on-one matches against representatives from the other class. He paused to let the information sink in. This is not just about power, it's about reading your opponent, thinking tactically, and representing your class. You'll have time to observe and analyze your matchups before fighting. Izuku exchanged a glance with Izumi, who gave him a soft smile. Sounds fun, right, darling? She whispered, and he nods. Will we know our opponents ahead of time? Ida asked, shortly before the matches. You'll have time to study their quirks and behavior. Use it wisely, Aizawa answered. As chatter resumed, Kirishima leaned over to talk with Kaminari. I've been talking to Tetsu from their class. He's like me, but metal instead of rock. We've sparred a few times. Real solid guy. Nice. Any other info? Kaminari asked eagerly. A few of them have strong support coordination. And their class rep, Itsuka Kendo, keeps everyone in check. Real sharp and dependable. Across the room, others were beginning to discuss what they'd seen or heard about 1B from scattered interactions or shared training spaces. Aizawa turned to leave. Get your rest. I want everyone sharp tomorrow. The door closed behind him. Izuku leaned back into the couch, Izumi now resting against his side. We'll have to adapt quickly, he said softly. But that's what we're best at, Izumi replied, lacing her fingers with his. Across the room, Class 1A was buzzing with plans and theories. Tomorrow, they'd finally get to test their mettle against their class counterparts. And none of them wanted to fall short. After a short while, the dorm halls were silent, lit only by the soft glow of night lights. Most of Class 1A had already gone to bed, the buzz of the upcoming match with Class 1B finally quieting down. Izumi moved quietly down the hall, stopping in front of Inko's door. It was slightly ajar. She gently knocked, but received no reply. Carefully peeking in, she saw the kind woman fast asleep, a soft snore escaping her as she lay on her side, still in her day. Clothes half covered by the blanket. With a warm smile, Izumi stepped inside. Inko-san, she whispered softly. The older woman didn't stir. Not wanting her to catch a cold, Izumi gently tugged the blanket up, draping it snugly around her shoulders and waist. She smoothed a lock of hair from Inko's forehead, then leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to it. Thank you for everything today, Izumi murmured. You worked hard, Mama Inko, or should I say mother-in-law. She giggled quietly to herself and turned to the door. With one last fond glance, Izumi whispered, "Good night," and softly closed the door behind her. The dorm fell into peaceful silence once again. The moonlight filtered in through the curtains of the shared dorm room, casting a silvery hue across the room's soft tones. The buzz of the day had long faded, and most of UA was quiet, save for the hum of distant wind through the trees. Izumi slipped quietly into the room, her steps light and careful. Izuku was already lying down, his eyes half lidded but alert as the door clicked shut. You were gone longer than I thought, he murmured, his voice soft with sleep. I just checked on your mom, Izumi said with a smile, her tone hushed. She was half covered and snoring like a cat. Izuku chuckled lightly, sitting up just enough to reach his hand toward her. Come here. She didn't need to be told twice. As Izumi slid under the blanket, Izuku wrapped his arms around her gently. Their bodies fit together with practiced comfort, her head resting against his chest, his chin atop her hair. Tomorrow's going to be a big day, he said, his voice mulled slightly in her hair. I know, she whispered, but right now this is all I need. His hand found hers beneath the blanket, fingers intertwining. For a few moments, silence reigned warm and unbroken save for the gentle rhythm of their breathing. And then, barely above a whisper, Izuku spoke. Thanks for being here. Izumi closed her eyes, her voice barely audible. Always. As the moon moved across the sky, the two drifted away in each other's arms, wrapped in a calm before the storm. The sun cast golden streaks through the dorm windows as morning broke. The dining area buzzed with a mix of energy and nerves as Class 1A gathered for breakfast. Some students munched on toast or rice bowls, while others reviewed notes or scrolled through their tablets. "So today's the day, huh?" Kaminari asked, chomping on an egg sandwich. "The 1v1 battles with 1B. I still think we should have gotten to pick our weapons. Or something, like in a video game. You'd elect to bring a foam bat," Jairu quipped. "Hey, I'd bring something shocking, literally." Kaminari protested like his life depended on it. Mina leaned in, grinning. "I'm actually kind of excited. We've only ever seen 1B from a distance. Should be fun to finally see what they can really do. Just don't let your guard down," Todoroki said as he calmly sipped his miso soup. "Their coordination and strategies are sharp. They'll try to overwhelm us mentally as much as physically." Kirishima nodded. "Yeah," Tetsu said. "They've been training just as hard as us. This isn't going to be a walk in the park." Izumi, on the other hand, has her thoughts. "I doubt my darling would have problems with them. The odds are in negatives from my calculations." Izumi pinched the bridge of her nose. "Izuku might as well walk them in the park," she spoke. Ida adjusted his glasses. "All the more reason to take this seriously. This exercise reflects not just our individual strength, but the DSBLN and unity of our class." As the chatter continued, Izuku sat near the back, Izumi next to him, both quietly eating. He listened to every word, nodding along now and then. Izumi leaned closer, whispering, "Nervous?" "No," he replied with a soft smile. "No need to be." Just then, the sliding door to the cafeteria opened and Aizawa walked in, still looking half asleep, but as direct as ever. "All right," he said, rubbing his neck. "I hope you've all eaten. Get your gear and assemble at ground. Gamma, it's time." A quiet wave of tension passed through the room. "Already," Kaminari gulped. "Good luck, everyone," Uraraka said with a small wave as she stood. Izuku rose to his feet, offering a hand to Izumi, who took it without hesitation. As they walked out together, shoulders brushing, the class filed behind them, each student carrying their own nerves, confidence, and expectations. The time had come. Class 1A was ready to show what they were made of. Class 1A gathered at Ground Gamma, decked out in their training gear, the tension of anticipation hanging thick in the air. Before them, Class 1B waited, equally prepared, equally determined. A moment of quiet stretched between the two classes. Then, Kirishima broke the silence with a grin. "Yo, Tetsu. Ijiro." Tetsu beamed, bumping fists with his metal counterpart. "Ready to see who's tougher today?" "You know it, bro." Not far from them, Momo, Yaoyorozu, and Itsuka Kendo approached each other with composed smiles. Kendo, Momo greeted. "I look forward to learning from today's session." "As do I, Yaoyorozu," Kendo replied. "Let's lead by example." As Kendo spoke that, Momo's eyes landed on Izuku for a moment. "I doubt I could lead as good as Midoriya. He's a natural-born leader." Her gaze focused on him, longer than she accepted. Beyond those brief exchanges, the air remained heavy-charged. The rest of the students exchanged cautious looks, sizing each other up. The stillness was not hostile, but electric. A silent challenge passed between young heroes in training. Izuku stood silently beside Izumi, watching every face in Class 1B with careful eyes. He could feel the intent radiating away them. Some looked nervous, others determined, a few cocky. He whispered to Izumi, "Time to test ourselves." Izumi grinned. "Then let's give them a reason to remember Class 1A. A whistle blew Aizawa's signal. From the observation deck, faculty and pro heroes watched with sharp eyes. It was time. 2 classes, 1 battlefield, and a chance to rise above. The first matchups would soon be revealed, and not one student wanted to be outdone. As Vladking took a name from Class 1B's name bowl, with Aizawa doing the same, but with Class 1A. As they announced 2 name, Kaminari versus Shiozaki, the first matchup was announced, and all eyes turned to the digital display as the names flashed across the screen. Denki Kaminari, Class 1A, versus Ibara Shizuki, Class 1B. Kaminari blinked twice before realization hit him. Wait, me? Against her, Kaminari looks at the woman before him. Divine beauty with green vines for hair. He glanced at Izuku, who owered a small nod and a reassuring thumbs up. You've trained for this, Izuku reminded him. You've got the edge. Think first, shock later. Kaminari inhaled sharply, then smiled. Right. Watch me shine, big bro. As he stepped into the battlefield, murmurs spread through the watching students. Ibara, with her calm expression and elegant demeanor, waited on the opposite end, vine-like hair coiled slightly behind her like a serpent. Ready to strike, Izumi whispered to Izuku. Is he ready for someone as precise as her? He will be. He's learned to think more tactically. He just needs to stay cool. Izuku whispered back. Already theories formed inside his head about this matchup. The match began. Kaminari immediately darted sideways, not charging forward blindly. His time under Izuku's mentorship had taught him patience. He circled, observing Ibara's stance, watching how her vines twitched, slightly with her breath. Electricity, Ibara said softly, her voice calm like a prayer. Your quirk is powerful, yet volatile. You must wield it with DSBLN, not recklessness. Kaminari grinned. Funny, that's what my big bro says too. Then he dashed in, aiming a burst of electricity toward the ground, an intentional misfire that kicked up debris and blocked her vision. Ibara responded instantly, vines whipping forward like spears through the dust. But Kaminari had moved fast. Kaminari was now at the other side of the ring. I call this one Speed Force. There, Kaminari stood with arcs of electricity enveloping him like a cloak. I can't stay in this form. I need a good. I'm still faster than what she could throw. So he prepared for her attacks. A well-placed jolt struck one of her vine extensions, short-circuiting a few tendrils before they reached him. He didn't aim for her directly. He struck the vines. Smart. Ancient. Ibara narrowed her eyes slightly. Impressed. Kaminari panted but grinned, crouched low, ready to move again. From the sidelines, Izuku smiled proudly. He's learning, but when in Speed Force he needs to use it sparingly or he'll run out of juice faster than he could land a finishing blow on her. Izuku spoke. Whether Kaminari won or lost, one thing was clear: this wasn't the same reckless spark from weeks ago. This was the spark of someone determined to shine. So he did. Thunder God. Technique. Spear of Zeus. Kaminari exclaimed. Constructs a bolt of lightning as if it was a spear. Since when can Kaminari do that? Kirishima yelled, confused at the finesse Kaminari has with his quirk, since the time he spent time with my darling Izuku here. Izumi, voice filled with joy and pride, slaps Izuku's back. Back to the match. Kaminari throws the spear of electricity, but Ibara Shiozaki, calm and composed, lifted her arms. Her vine-like hair bloomed into a sturdy dome, forming a protective thicket. The spear hit with a thunderous crack, splitting the air as the vine barrier shuddered under the impact. Smoke curled from the scorched vines, but the barrier had held. Kaminari exhaled hard. She's tougher than I thought. Ibara stepped forward, tendrils extending. I admire your progress, Kaminari-san, but power alone does not overcome conviction. Their duel reignited, more intense than before, Kaminari dodging more precisely, attacking with better aim, and Ibara's vines weaving tighter, faster defenses. Above it, all the crowd watched in awe. No matter who emerged victorious, it was clear both had grown. But Kaminari, the once laughing shock jester, now stood tall, crackling with confidence and purpose. The arena crackled with residual static as Kaminari's final attack faded. Smoke curled from the battered arena floor. Ibara's vine dome had held, but barely parts of it were scorched and wilted, singed by the pure voltage of Kaminari's spear. Denki stumbled slightly, sweat clinging to his brow. His chest heaved, and his vision swam. Izuku's eyes narrowed. He's nearing his limit, he muttered. He's bleeding from abusing Speed Force. Indeed, a thin line of BLD trickled from Kaminari's nose. He wiped it with the back of his glove, chuckling breathlessly. Okay, might have overdone it with the speed force there. Denki, Jairu called from the sidelines, worry creasing her face. Oh my, someone's a little too worried. A little smirk creeped on Izuku's face. Just a bit more, Kaminari muttered. Sparks danced across his fingers. His whole body trembled, muscles strained to the brink. Ibara, still on her feet, had narrowed her gaze. You fight with passion and recklessness, she said softly. But there is sincerity in your resolve. I will meet it properly. I will cast down divine judgment for using moves of fictitious. God, her vines whipped forward again, but not to attack. She wrapped them around herself like armor, bracing herself. Kaminari's eyes widened. All right, then, he planted his feet, electricity surging through him once more. The light dimmed for a split second then, with a burst of yellow. Lightning, he launched, a blur of sparks. He was faster than before, a streak of light cracking. Across the field, he didn't aim to strike her. He struck the ground just beside her, sending a shockwave through the vines, overloading their structure. With a final cry, he let the current burst from his entire body, rippling across the field. Ibra staggered, then fell to her knees. The buzzer rang. Winner, Denki Kaminari. Class 1A cheers erupted from Class 1A. TC Diminute how did Shiozaki lost to a dunce like that? Monoma glared daggers at the exhausted Kaminari. But Kaminari didn't move. He collapsed forward onto his hands, breathing ragged, BLD still dripping from his nose. Izuku was the first to move, already sprinting to his little brother before anyone else. You idiot, he muttered with a smile, catching Denki before he could fall further. But you did it. Denki grinned through the pain. Told you I could shine, and shine he did. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku's soul created magic goddess. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to Prysmordia for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on Wattpad for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zen and Fanfics for more intriguing explorations in a fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.